Hey, welcome everybody. How y'all doing? Another week down, episode number 53 of Heavy Metallurgy. Um, been a busy week. Alan, hey, he's got a little bit of a brick house lifted off his shoulders today. What happened today, Alan?
School's out for the summer. I was going to play some Alice Cooper on the phone, but it might be a copyright strike or something. So I'll just say it, and everybody knows where it comes from. But
Absolutely.
The semester is done. So Kalu Kalei, the professor shall play.
Well, hey, now you got to plan. You got to get ready for the Glorious Album Club on Wednesday with Creator's Terrible Certainty,
which I had just bought a copy of a couple of weeks ago. So
it's excellent. You're ready to roll then.
That lined up pretty nicely. Yep. Man, I got to get ready for summer school and yard work and all that. So it's not really a break. It's more like shifting to a whole bunch of different stuff. But I'll take it. I would definitely take it. A change will be good right now. But yeah, how are you doing this week, Marty? I think I'm not the only one who's been busy as of late.
Yeah, it's been busy. Things are starting to explode for all people that are waiting. The Nachachuan records arrived from the plant today, a week before the release date, which is a miracle.
Nice.
But I'm so busy printing shirts for other people right now, I can't jump into it like I want to, but we'll get them to you. Don't worry about it, everybody. And it looks amazing. Sounds really good too. Amazing, actually. And great album. It's been 7 years in the making. And if it doesn't top a lot of people's best of lists, there's something wrong with you. Something wrong. It's so good. But yeah, other than that, just, daily survival. But today we've got a pretty, I guess we should probably say that t-shirts are still available. We're going to get some other designs, folks. It takes a minute having to, commission somebody to do art for it, or, it takes time. We got an idea in mind. I just need to figure out how to do it without getting sued by a much, much bigger legendary band. But yeah, shirts are coming. Super chats are turned on if anybody wants to donate to the channel. It all goes back to the channel. We really appreciate it. And all of you folks here, it's so awesome to see you. Oh, here we go. Oop, Mel's chiming in. Yep. You can play for a week, then summer classes start.
Yep. But yeah, lots of folks already in the chat. Good to see folks. And yes, the super chats are just there for folks who have asked how they can support the channel. So that's a very easy way to do it while you're listening to us carry on and have fun tonight. But nobody needs to do that. Do not feel pressured to whatsoever. We appreciate the support. If you've got a few dollars that you want to throw our way. But you get the same fun evening of entertainment regardless of whether you're throwing anything into the pot or not. And what are we having fun with tonight, Marty?
Before we get into that, I just want to say, Darcy, sure. Everybody go. I forgot to mention last week he was in the chat. I named off a bunch of YouTubers to check out. Go check out Darcy 6 Strings 9 Lives. He's a great channel on YouTube. Darcy, I owe you an email. I've been super busy. I will get to that tonight or tomorrow. I'll get back to you. But everybody go check out Darcy 6 Strings 9 Lives. He is going to be coming onto the show with us one of these days. We need to
I sent him a message a couple of days ago to follow up on that, see when we can get him booked. Yep, have not
iron out the in the works. Awesome. But tonight we are going into a topic that is no stranger to this channel, and I feel honestly like a lot of albums I picked today I've talked ad nauseum about on this channel and in these streams, but doesn't matter. It's probably one of my favorite musical genres and probably time in my life, the teenage years, the most formative years. And thrash metal was certainly, I lived, breathed, slept it. And I'm sure, Alan, you were probably in a very similar boat.
Yep.
But tonight, our guest, and we're going to be bringing on Melanie from Melanie Loves Death Metal. Melanie, sorry to make you wait so long. And everybody go check out her channel. Her channel is growing and she's been crushing it, kicking all kinds of ass, a lot of updates, very professional, great opinions, awesome. And the link to her channel is in the description. So for anybody who has not checked out Melanie Loves Death Metal, please go do so after tonight. How are you?
Good. I'm broke because of my channel.
It keeps you working.
On top of, I want to make a collection update today. I should probably buy some more stuff so I have some stuff to show. It's people suggesting things to me that are now starting to get me in trouble. Things that I probably necessarily wouldn't have listened to at a second chance, you know, and then I went back and listened. I'm like, all right, fine, this is good. I guess I'll buy this.
Well, it's kind of a tribute to this, you know, a salute to this community that surrounds these channels and these people. There's so many great people, all you folks watching, and, you know, you reach out and communicate and share ideas, share different bands and stuff. It's kind of what it's all about. I guess this is kind of the tape trading of the modern era,
Yeah.
but we're doing it a little bit differently. The zine, this is the zine of the modern era for sure. Stated that before, and it's kind of true. All those zines are starting to claw their way back out of the past into the forefront again, which
I thought we were more like the soap opera of the modern era.
do we need some
You're right,
some
we'll
Days
be
of Our Lives music to, you know, like look into each other's eyes every once in a while, Alan?
Like sands through the hourglass on the cover of an Atheist album. So goes all the money from our wallets.
Exactly. So how has the channel been doing, Melanie? Things been growing pretty quickly, haven't they?
Yeah, within the last couple of weeks, I noticed I got a lot more subscriptions and my views
Awesome.
skyrocketed. I don't know if I was maybe on the front page of YouTube at one time and more people started to see my stuff. Maybe it was a hashtag that I used. I don't know. But the last couple of weeks, I've gotten a lot of new interaction, a lot of new subscribers, more views, and then it's funny because that then floats into my other social media where they start to follow me over there. And that's more of a private messaging system. So then it's been a lot more interaction that way. So yeah, it's been crazy. I'm not sure what happened. I don't know what happened, but just something all of a sudden started booming on the channel, and I've been getting a lot more lately. So it's been doing that, the ebbs and flows. But right now I'm at a high peak again.
Well, I think part of it, I think your quick rise in this had a lot to do with your hustle on Instagram. I mean, Instagram is
For
one of
sure.
those things I use piss poorly. My social media versatility is pretty lame, and you really seem to get it and understand it, and you've reached out to a lot of people that way, and it translated well when you started up the channel. I think that was a good way to transition.
It was kind of surprising too, because when I started the channel, I wasn't that interactive on Instagram yet. Like I had people that I normally talked to. I had the normal people that I, you know, would comment on and stuff. But a lot of my followers were just, you know, randos that I didn't really know. And then when they started to realize I had a YouTube channel, that was when I started to realize, oh, people actually do look at my stuff on Instagram. And then they started to get more comfortable with messaging me and stuff, which I'm fine with. But there are days where I don't realize it in like your message requests folder. So if I'm not following you, it goes there.
Yeah.
At times I'll have like 15 that I just hadn't read. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm not ignoring you. I just didn't know it was there. So I'm trying to figure out how to turn that off. I haven't been able to. So if anybody knows how to turn that off, let me know, because
You're asking the wrong person.
I have no idea.
Oh yeah. Yep.
It's for the
IG
kids.
is for the kids and Melanie.
I mean, I'm not a kid. Yeah, no.
So thrash metal, you kind of came up with this topic pretty quickly. It was pretty much a unanimous decision without much banter back and forth. What is it, just because it might be a genre you don't cover as much on your channel? You were kind of interested to get into it, or what were you thinking?
So I'll admit this is why. So I bought this at a heavy discount on Record Store Day, which I didn't show you because I'm going to make a full unboxing video. As you can see, it's damaged and stuff. And then this again brought me back to all of the favorite thrash albums that I grew up listening to and that I absolutely loved. And then I just started getting back, like taking out all my thrash albums and re-listening to things again. And then that was going to be like a new thing on my channel. It's like a weekly thrash, and just talk through new albums that I'm getting that's, you know, thrash metal and looking for now. Because there's a lot that I don't have anymore on physical format, unfortunately, because I got rid of most of my CDs when I moved out of my parents' house. So yeah, I bought that Overkill box set, you know, Record Store Day. The store that I had it deeply discounted, like insane, just because it was, the box is damaged. I was like, I don't really care about the box. Like, I just want the vinyl that's in there.
It's sad that box set would have been a lot more appealing to me if it had Feel the Fire in it. That's my favorite Overkill album.
And I mean, to me, I was like, well, I own that on CD, so I guess I'll be okay with just having it. But for the price, it was it was cheaper than what you can find on Amazon right now. So
Yeah.
I just picked it up and grabbed it. I mean, it's a pretty cheap box set. Nothing comes with it. It's just the vinyl in the box. Like, that's it. It's not like the creator box set that came with the demo tape and the DVD and the little figurine and like all that stuff with the USB of all the MP3 files and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, that was pretty much what got me. I mean, I've always listened to thrash, like always. It's one of those things where I wake up in the morning, I'm like, well, today I feel like listening to, Kill 'Em All. So I'll put my Kill 'Em All record on and listen to it. And then that just goes. And that's generally the type of music that I play in the car when I'm with my family, because it's the kind that they can tolerate more. They don't necessarily want to listen to the black metal or the death metal. So,
Right.
But yeah, no, it was just because, like, similar to the Merciful Fate and King Diamond streams that we did, I was just listening to that at the time. And was just in, like, binging on it. And so it just felt, it was fresh in my mind, something that I could easily talk about.
Yeah.
And so was Suffocation, but two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Moonstar was asking which albums are in that. Isn't it like Taking Over through I Hear Black, which is a complete turd of an album? If anybody tells you it's good, they're wrong. Oh, it goes to WFO.
Yeah, it goes to WFO. It's all the Atlantic albums.
Yep.
So
WFO has good tracks on it.
Yeah, that was a decent album.
It's just, it's just black vinyl. It's nothing else. This is all it is. But
still very
cool. For the price, it was worth it. I mean, I was able to get some of my favorite albums that I had never had on vinyl. So
if it was a good price, I probably would have jumped on it too. I've only got a couple. I think I got Under the Influence on vinyl. I've got their Power in Black. Is that what it's called? That LP only has 5 songs on it.
Oh, the original EP.
Yeah.
Oh, it's self-titled. Yeah. It's self-titled. Yeah.
Self-titled. Yeah.
Yeah. But well, anyway, why don't we dive into this? I know I've got a shit ton of stuff here. I'm sure y'all do as well. So, Melanie, why don't you start us down the path here? Where are we going?
I'm like debating on if I should start, like, really just dive in, or if I should ease into some of my all-time favorites. So I guess I'll do one that is modern. I don't have a lot of modern thrash, by the way, at all. In fact, the stack is like this big, but I feel like this definitely needs to be called out on this stream in a Power Trip Nightmare Logic. So, obviously this band is newer. Well, I don't even know if they're going to be active anymore after Riley's passing, but this came out in 2017, and this pretty much is what really revived thrash metal for me in the modern age. It basically is a very, very good album. And I remember the first time I heard it was on Liquid Metal on Sirius XM in my car.
Yep.
And I was like, what is this? Like, this actually sounds like a good thrash band, like a good new thrash band, because it's been relatively rare these last 20 years. And so I listened to it, I streamed it, and then I bought it. And oddly enough, I bought it, and then it blew up. And this album is really good. I think it got a lot of commercial time, so maybe some people might find it to be a little bit overhyped. And I think the commercial for me was good because, again, thrash metal has always seemed a little bit dead in my eyes. And so this really, it brought it back for me. And yeah, they are considered to be a lot more crossover. I think there's some of that death thrash elements into there. They definitely could even probably be a little bit of groove. I don't know if you want to be really technical, but for me, this was that modern day album that finally something within the thrash vein that is worthy of talking about and having it be considered a favorite album of mine. And then unfortunately, Riley passes away, and essentially was kind of like, well, shit. I don't usually get, upset about passing of people who I don't know, especially in bands. But for this, it was kind of just like, they had a great momentum, a good steam full head. And I really liked what he was doing as like a mentor in the scene of what all the charitable work that he was doing outside of Texas and through all of that. And like, he seemed like he had a good demeanor about him. He was going to be a positive role model within the metal scene and all the other things that he did. And unfortunately, his passing really kind of stunk because now it's like they only have 2 full lengths and there's just a couple of EPs and stuff like that. So, I mean, essentially, I just can't imagine this band goes on and does something else that I'll probably enjoy as much without him, because he was such a good front man. But you never know. But I decided, this is probably the only, don't worry, it's the only like really modern thing. But I know it's an acquired taste. Some people really find it to be overhyped, but it just was impossible for me not to at least bring it up on the show tonight, because again, it really was what revived me back into thrash, because it was, for a while there, I really wasn't listening to it a whole lot, especially now since I've been so into death metal.
Yeah. It's good to fill up your racks with other subgenres, because you will eventually get burnt out of death metal, and you'll get burnt out on thrash. You'll get burnt out on black metal.
Yeah.
It's nice to, I've tried to, I've had friends that don't diversify their collections and get really pissed and burn out really quick when they don't have something to bounce around on. But, all right, Alan. Oh, wait, I do want to make a comment here. There's two guys, part of the community here, Carnivorous Carnage and Oregon 0101, both started channels here recently. Just want to give everybody a point their YouTube browser over to those channels and check out guys in the chat that are, starting their own thing, starting on their own YouTube path of addiction. And it's good to have you, and it's good to have you in the chat, and it's good to have you guys starting some videos too. But Alan.
Yep, you took
what
the
you
words
got?
right out of my mouth, Marty. I was going to shout them out. I got stuff. I do want to follow up on something Melanie said, because I was thinking the exact same kind of thing earlier while pulling records. Thrash is a genre that we all love. Lots of heavy metal fans love. But it really does feel like there has not been a lot of newer thrash that gets a ton of attention, that we all seem to go back to the same old classics. Even like you mentioned, Marty, you kind of feel like a lot of the stuff you pulled tonight is stuff you've pulled other times. And I was kind of feeling the same way a little bit. And then Melanie kind of made the same comment. What is it about thrash that it seems like it's a little stuck? Is there something inherent to that genre where it's just plateaued? And why aren't there more quote unquote modern thrash bands that make it over that hump? And I know there are modern thrash bands. Some folks are already mentioning a few newer bands in the comments, and that's great. But they don't really seem to become, household names, so to speak. Power Trip probably is the closest one within at least the past 10 years, and maybe longer than that.
Well, Vector has made a stink.
Vector got close. Yeah, Vector was working on it.
They're victim of their own stupidity.
Yeah. But why is that? What is it about? I mean, we see death metal has come back and proliferated and done well again. Black metal goes in cycles and diversifies and does well. Power metal, doom metal. These other genres, you have newer bands that come along that kind of keep it going. And thrash is the one that sometimes feels like you really are just listening, to the super hits over and over and over again, because there's just nothing new that ever gets into rotation much. Any thoughts from either of you about why that is?
Yeah, Ryan just made a good point. The hardcore scene right now is really good. Like, there's a lot of hardcore bands that I've recently been getting into that I probably wouldn't have listened to 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, and there's a lot of hardcore punk crossover within the thrash scene, which is essentially what I've always loved about thrash, because I could never really fully get into punk metal, and I could never really fully get into the hardcore scene back then. So thrash is really what connected it all for me, and what I liked more, because it was just more metal, more heavy metal, or borderline getting close to death metal, close but not. I don't know, for these newer bands like Toxic Holocaust and Municipal Waste, like those are probably the bigger modern day thrash bands. I think for me, I just came late into listening to them. I was very judgmental, because some of my all-time favorite bands are, Metallica, their first albums, and then Anthrax and Creator and all the big house names of thrash. It just got to the point where I couldn't imagine listening to a modern thrash album with the modern production that often goes into these newer modern sounding albums that are just too pristine and too crisp. And that's what I kind of just got to the point of where I didn't think that I could fully get into it. But I do have some other modern ones in here, you know, that I've now recently listened to within the last like 10, 12 years they've been out. And I definitely probably had a prejudgment that I shouldn't have. And I do think that they're good. But again, I don't know. It's really strange. I don't always pull them and listen to them as frequently as you think, considering how much new music I'm listening to constantly. When it comes to thrash, it's just one of those, it's comfortable. It's what I know. So I know I love it. It's, you know, this is where I'm stuck in my ways when it comes to music. Like I'm not stuck in my ways in any other place of metal, but with thrash, it's always been this. So I know it's hard to explain.
I personally, I think, you know, I can't really elaborate much on why it's not gaining a solid foothold like it did, but, you know, being a child of that era, I would say that, you know, thrash had a very enthusiastic run, a quick rise. And as soon as bands like Metallica, Testament, Slayer, Anthrax started getting to the major labels, what happens is what always happens in music media. These big labels are like, okay, we have to sign everybody that's wearing tight ripped up denim jeans and the high tops, the white high tops. And what it did was breed an incredible glut of bands that were tired. And by the time death metal started getting a foothold, it took the thrash template, bumped it up in aggression and speed, and it really put a pretty solid bullet to the skull of the thrash thing. Because let's be honest, I mean, I was getting tired of some of the shit that was coming out. I would buy records, you know, it was just like, oh, it's okay, but it's just so blah. I mean, the same thing happened in like 95, 96 when we started Worm Gear Zine. Every single demo we got in, it sounded like it was like Internal Bleeding, like New York death metal slam type, because Cannibal Corpse and Suffo were so huge. Every band sounded like them, and it really took me out of the death. I was in such a solid death metal frame of mind. It willingly pushed me into black metal, where black metal dominated much of my 90s and 2000s. Until that eventually burned out. And that's happening with black metal too. Black metal's getting tired, man. And all this new stuff that's coming out, kids trying to be cult. And, you know, the corpse paint on the cover would just all look like a Blaze in the Northern Sky album covers. You know, it's just, everything's a cycle. And, you know, thrash, there's been a few bands that have really kind of started saying that, okay, here, it's coming back. But you're right, Alan. It starts to spin its wheels, but then it just it takes a backseat to other things that are going on. And why that is, I don't know if that people's perception, people aren't ready for it yet. I don't know. But, you know, bands like Power Trip, you know, they had quite a buzz about them. Yep. And Melanie, you were saying that you're not much into the hardcore stuff. I would encourage you to check out like DRI's Dealing with It. I would encourage you to check out the first 3 Cryptic Slaughter albums. I would encourage you to check out early The Accused. That is metal and hardcore, and that is going to be your entryway to say, okay, it kind of wraps it in more of a metallic edge. It's going to kind of present you, okay, I'm ready to start taking the hardcore stuff. Because there's a lot of these hardcore bands that are flirting quite heavily with metal. You know, bands like At the Gates and all these other bands, or Dysphere, and, you know, all bands like that start to make hardcore a little more metallic.
Naming off the bands now. It's funny that you mentioned Cryptic Slaughter, because I do have Convicted. That's the one album that I own by them. I mean, that's an 80s crossover album that
it's good.
Easily, and it is very, very good. I mean,
The Money Talks afterward is really good, and the one after that, Stream of Consciousness, is really, it sounds like it was recorded in a garage, but I love the energy of it. It's just, it's almost like grindcore, but it's not really, you know, it's really cool.
For sure. And I was going to pull it for tonight, but I was like, I think this is a little bit more too punkish sounding. Some people might argue with me about it.
Okay. No, all interesting thoughts. Yeah, it was something I had been on my mind. I wanted to throw out there. And I agree with the comments y'all have made and what I'm seeing in the chat from folks like Electric Banana. Thrash is in that weird middle ground now that, you know, if somebody's looking for much more extreme stuff, thrash is going to be too safe for them. They're going to go for, you know, the death or black metal stuff. At the same time, at the other end of the spectrum, if people are wanting something a little easier to listen to, they're going to go into a power metal direction probably, and thrash is going to still sound a little too, raw or aggressive to them. And so who's left there in the middle? A lot of folks that grew up with it, and have a strong connection to it and nostalgia for it. But yeah, it's hard to. It just seems like it's a little hard for thrash to make waves the way it did once upon a time. But I mean, that said, it is still a beloved genre for a lot of folks. And again, I'm sure there are lots of good newer bands, tolling away out there that I just don't know about. So I'm not trying to overlook or disparage them at all. It's just that, it's striking that, right off the bat, we all were kind of thinking that, same old albums. Yeah, not a whole lot from the last 20 years. So I figured it was worth kind of looking at that.
Mitch here's got a really good point. I don't think thrash will ever make a full resurgence. It's one of those few subgenres that is of one time period.
It could be.
It is very much a time period built on nostalgia. I mean, like there's all these new trad metal bands that are coming up, and it's very nostalgia driven. And the thrash scene is very much like that because it is a definite timestamp on it. Mm-hmm. And the younger crowd might be more into black metal. They might be more into the modern, cavernous death metal stuff. And the thrash probably just sounds too weak to them. And it sounds, if a thrash band is doing it the way that it's supposed to be, it sounds very dated, which, for myself, I mean, this thrash stuff, like I said, it's my teen years, and this is all I listen to other than some, classic metal stuff and Ozzy and, stuff like that. But I mean, I put this stuff on and I'm reminded of the shit I did as a teenager. I remember it, men are always plagued with the fact that they're always, the thing that why people get depressed, they're getting old, is because they still realize they're still thinking 16-year-old thoughts in their head. And when they realize that they're not a 16-year-old anymore, it's like, holy fuck, I'm old, So the nostalgia thing, I think, is very big. That's a good point, Mitch. Thanks for bringing that up. But anyway, to you, Alan. I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
Oh, no worries at all. Yeah. So I figured like Melanie, I wanted to look for something that was a little newer to start with. I found an older band, but with a newer album. A lot of the big thrash titans, they've wandered hither and yon over time. Metallica has, of course, strayed far from thrash. Megadeth too. Anthrax has gone through different permutations. One band that's stayed pretty close to the course all the way through things and is still putting out pretty good albums, Testament. So I figured I'd start with Titans of Creation from 2 years ago.
It's a good album.
It is a decent album. It's not their best album. I'm not making that claim. It's not album of the year for me from 2020 or anything like that. But
it's a bit long.
It's a solid album. They always sound good. They always have just a completely kick-ass lineup, even though it seems like every album at least somebody rotates out and somebody else rotates in. But they're always bringing in all-star level performers, and they've just made consistently solid albums. Of all the kind of classic thrash bands, they're the ones that feel like they still have the formula down really pat. And sometimes they have it down a little too pat. If there's one criticism, it is that this album doesn't vary a whole lot from Brotherhood of the Snake. And Brotherhood of the Snake, a lot of it can sound a little interchangeable with Dark Spirit. Was it Dark Spirits of the Earth?
Roots,
Dark something of the Earth?
Dark Soul of Earth.
Dark Soul of the Earth.
Something.
They're in their lane. They know what they're good at, and they do it, and they do it consistently, which can feel a little dull sometimes. But when nobody else is doing it, it's actually nice to have that, to always go back to. When other bands are trying all kinds of different things, or just not putting albums out anymore, or haven't done a real thrash album in 30 years, you always got Testament to check in with, and get a new thrash album that is going to be solid. It may not blow you away, but it's still going to be a good listen. So I wanted to start off with a newer album that there is still good thrash being made by some of those sort of legacy bands.
Dark Roots of Earth. Thanks, Moon Sorrow.
Dark Roots of Earth. Thank you. Yep. All right, Marty. So Melanie and I are starting off with new stuff. What are you going to start with?
Well, I can assure you there is no new stuff in this stack. But I am going to start off with a band. This demo and this first release eviscerates, skins, and lights on fire 98% of the US thrash metal realm. And it's a goddamn shame they never got their due. I'm talking about Sadus. The Death to Posers demo is an absolute scathing masterpiece of rage and fire. This album, oh my God, I'd listen to it today. Certain Death, Undead, Sadist Attack. Every song on this thing is a visceral strike of raging thrash, and it is so well written. So, I mean, I'm trying to think why this band never took off. I mean, Steve DeGorgio, he's in Testament. I mean, there's the crossover there with Alan's Pick. He's been in Death. He's been in Autopsy. He's been in a ton of bands playing his amazing bass work, always cuts through. But the thing I think maybe held this back, people just weren't into Darren's vocals. I don't know, but it's just a feral, scathing, screaming style that no one sounded like this band, especially on this period. Their second album, Swallowed in Black, is very good. The production's a little wonky for me, but I still love that album. Vision of Misery is really good. Their first three albums are fantastic. This is essential. If you have not heard Illusions, Chemical Exposure, you should definitely try to track it. It's not cheap. You're not going to find this cheap online. I'm telling you straight up, but amazing American thrash that is just a goddamn shame they never got their due. These guys were fighting hard, touring, and no one gave a shit about them, which is really fucking sad. Great band. So good. The Death to there's just scathing shit, man. Thrash has never been more fierce. But
and Marty, there is a Digipack reissue that I don't know when it came out exactly, but it can be found for not a bad price. You're not going to, it's not dirt cheap, but it's not overly expensive if folks are looking for that one.
Cool. Scott here is saying that they reissued the Sadist stuff. That's cool. I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a while there. If you wanted to buy that CD, you're paying $60 to $100.
Yes. Their stuff was very hard to find for a long time.
So Melanie, put that on your list.
Oh, don't worry. It's they're always like in the Apple Music, like 80s thrash essentials. Sadist is on there. Like I've obviously listened to him. I just don't own anything by him. And actually, I didn't even think to pull him for this. So now I'm probably getting kicked myself for not. But yeah, William definitely underrated. That's for sure.
Yeah, William saying that Listenable Records was the one that the Sadist reissued.
Right on.
Folks are curious.
Cost $50 to get to the US then.
Yeah, Brian said you got an LP reissue of Chemical Exposure for $20. Worth every fucking penny. So good.
Nice. And
Certain Death, oh my God, crushing.
Brian, while you're listening, your package went in the mail this afternoon, so you can look for it probably late next week.
You said package. Okay.
Brian has a package coming in the mail. I said package again.
Melanie.
So I did have, my three favorite Testaments pulled, which was, The Legacy, which obviously iconic, and then New World Order, which is my favorite Testament album. It's the first one I ever heard. It's just the one that's always stuck with me. And then Souls of Black have always been my other ones. I was just assumed we were going to talk about Testament tonight, so I pulled them. But I feel like it's just kind of like a no-brainer. Of course, Testament's going to be in the thrash episode. So I tried to pull some stuff that maybe not a whole lot of people would think to talk about. And this is a shout out to Simon from Explosive Action, because he's the reason why I was like, I have not listened to that in forever. And that is Reanimator with Condemned to Eternity. So British bands. And at the time of them coming out, US and Germany were so booming in thrash. So I feel like maybe these guys got left a little bit behind there in regards to that. I think this is their second album. Is that what it is? Yeah. I think for me, this has always been a little bit of a gem, like a little bit of diamond in the rough in terms of the fully saturated 80s, 90s US black metal, or not black metal, thrash metal, and then the German scene. So anyway, he posted one of his OGs. I think it might have been the first album, and I was like, you know what? I haven't listened to that in forever, and this was one of those albums that I did a random grab out of a store up in the Chicagoland area that would always get all of these imports in, that you would have to spend like $40 just for one CD because they were imports. And at the time I was so into thrash, I would go to this store and I would spend like my week's worth of pay, because I just gotten a job, on just random blind buys, because they had a thrash section and you chose based off of the album cover and then, the logo name. And this one was just, I grabbed it. I think it was actually relatively cheap too. And then of course it sold my CDs. And so then when I started trying to get them back again, this was one that I made sure to get. And I think I grabbed it for like $8 off Discog. And I think it might actually be a bootleg, so it might not actually be an original one. Because when I got it in the mail, I was like, this looks really cheap. Sounds good though. So yeah, I think in terms of me for thrash bands, like I don't typically, pull UK British, thrash bands, and I probably can name like 5 on my hand, because, I've always been heavily into US and Germany, obviously. But this one I always really loved. And so it was nice to reconnect with it, especially recently. So thanks to Simon for just killing me again with all of your OG pressings that you randomly find down in Australia. So yeah, this is really good. I feel like it's pretty underrated. This also has a mini album, Deny Reality, which I feel like that's why it might be a bootleg. I don't know if somebody wants to.
No, mine's the same. Mine's the same.
Is it the same? Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, really good. Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect by any means. I think, obviously there's a lot of people complain about a song length, how it's too long. Like there's like an 8-minute song on here, and how, some of it can drag out a little bit. But for me, I guess I get so immersed with the riffage and stuff like that, it doesn't really bother me too much. Also, I love long songs. So, but that's probably the only con that I can say, is that song length probably drives people crazy.
All right, Alan.
All right. Well, I will show something I just got in the mail yesterday. So who says you can't still get thrash metal? This one came about because I've been chatting back and forth with Rick Perry, who leaves comments on different metal channels at times and has been in the chat before, I do believe. And he kind of mentioned, in passing that, his name always kind of rung a little bell in the back of my head. But, Rick Perry's not necessarily that unusual a name, but it's like, hey, sounds familiar. And so eventually I did just, stalk him on Google, and it's like, it's bugging me. I know that name from somewhere. And I checked, it's like, I wonder if that's the Rick Perry from Gamma Side. Turns out that's the Rick Perry from Gamma Side.
Nice.
And so, I figured, let's order up Gamma Side, because I hadn't thought of it or heard it in ages.
Jurgen was telling me to check those guys out.
Victims of Science. This was a Texas thrash band, the only album they released in 1989. They did a demo before this and a demo after it. Really good, very much what you'd expect for Texas thrash. A lot of the Texas thrash scene seemed to go a little bit towards the hardcore sound, very forceful, straightforward, very heavy, but also very tight, which is one thing that I like about the Gamma Side album. It's very intense, very tight, but it's not just like 28 minutes or anything like that either. A lot of the songs are very much what you'd expect from the cover says it all, late 80s thrash. It's got, environmental undertones, sort of, nuclear, radiation, big themes for it and stuff. They get special props from me for having a song Fossilized about dinosaurs in the Mesozoic era and them going extinct. So as a paleontologist, definitely bonus points for having Fossilized on the album. So one I hadn't thought of in ages until I got to chatting with Rick, and Rick's like, oh yeah, they actually just reissued it this year. I believe this is a 2022 reissue. Let me double check. Yes, 2022 reissue on No Life Till Metal Records. It's got some liner notes from Rick inside it and all of that good stuff. So if folks, are looking for maybe a little deeper cut, I really don't hear this one mentioned hardly ever. But very good, tight, fast, aggressive Texas thrash. Your Rotting Corpses and such. If you're into Texas thrash bands, you're going to like Gamma Side as well. And just because it's been cool chatting with Rick lately, wanted to mention he does have a newer project that he's in now called Iron Jaw. They've also got an album out. You can get it through Bandcamp. Now, on this project, they are very much going for a more traditional heavy metal sound. It strikes me on first impression as being very heavily influenced by like early 80s Judas Priest. The vocalist does a decent Rob Halford, kind of more in the mid-range of Halford, not the highs. But so yeah, Gamma Side if you're in a thrash mood, Iron Jaw if you want something a little more traditional flavored. So, but yeah,
I gotta check that out. I've heard good things.
I think it'd be in your wheelhouse. Somebody, some folks might say, well, it feels a little samey. It did come out, right there in the late 80s when the scene was very oversaturated. Rick mentions in the liner notes, that was something that definitely worked against the band. They were just a couple of years too late to the table to get a whole lot of attention. People were already lost in a sea of sound-alike thrash bands. But yeah, I think Gamma Side is one that still stands out. It's going back and replaying it for the first time in ages after I got to chatting with Rick. I was, very impressed at how well that album's held up.
Awesome. Okay,
All
next. I'm a broken record. I don't care. I'm going to get this out of the way right up front because Holy Terror Mind Wars. This to me ranks right up there with Sadus, early stuff of Sadus. This is just blistering, fast, coked out thrash with an amazing singer, Keith Dean, rest in peace. How he could sing in that melodious style over such fast, uncompromising riffs. I don't know, so many words, but he somehow did it, and he did it with class and style. He was, and if you guys want to pick up their whole catalog, you can get this box set called Total Terror. You can get it for about 30 some bucks on the eBay. It's got Terror and Submission, Mind Wars, El Revenjo, and then it's got disc 4, I think, is a live thing. Yeah, Live Terror. Worth every penny. This was a great, both of their albums were fantastic. This being the better of the two, their second album, Mind Wars, completely fierce. Kurt Coldfelt was in Agent Steel on the first album, Skeptic's Apocalypse. There's a song on there you will recognize. It's also on here, just with different lyrics. He must have wrote the song for Agent Steel and said, I'm on that band. Fuck you. I'm taking it. He made a Holy Terror song. I don't know if it's on this one or the other one now. I can't remember, but amazing band. One that you definitely don't need to sleep on. Pick it up if you see them. But anywhere.
Those have been reissued as well not too long ago. I've seen them in the local record stores on vinyl.
Nice.
And yes, they're both albums are killer. I prefer the first one by just a hair. That one is, I mean, they're both great albums. You can't go wrong.
All right, Melanie.
So I don't own it on any format because it is insanely expensive now. I did back in the day, but Evil Dead's Annihilation of Civilization is one that I've always really loved. It's not coming through. Where are these guys from? Are they from California? Yeah.
Replica
Steam Hammer
cover.
Records. Yeah. Just, all around fun. Of course, the name Evil Dead was appealing to me at the time. Obvious, horror movie references there. But I remember just picking it up based off of the cover, absolutely loving it. But unfortunately, the band was pretty plagued by issues because they ended up breaking up, I think, when they were recording their third album. And now I just noticed they're back and they made an album within the last 2 years. So I haven't even heard it, but, this one always comes into mind. It's one that I listen to quite a bit. It's that old school US thrash. It's got I think it's just in general, just fun. I wouldn't say it's normal, like in your face, like Holy Terror or Sadus, but, it's that borderline, could almost maybe sound like death thrash in some points of it, but for the most part, I've always really loved that album, and I figured I at least should call it out tonight. I just wish I could own it again. I tried to look for it, and I think the cheapest CD I was finding was like $60, which I'm not going to pay that. So if anybody has one,
right?
I'm not going to pay $60. So
okay, Alan.
All right, yeah, folks seem to be calling for a little of the heavier end of the thrash spectrum in the chat with some death thrash and stuff. I've never really known what to call this album or this band. They dirty thrash, death thrash. I've heard them referred to as like early, like first wave black metal even. But I figured, hell, it's a good album. I want to throw it in the mix, and we'll see what everybody else wants to call it. Enemies, Unholy Death. This is from 86, if I remember right, band from Washington State. Obviously kind of a small budget, do it yourself aesthetic here spliced together. Definitely, has a very strong punk vibe. Somebody in the comment just a minute ago was sort of, mentioning that, a lot of old thrash bands, had a punk influence. They were into a lot of, late punk and early hardcore, and you can definitely hear it on stuff like this. This band goes for a very sort of over the top vocal delivery. In 1986, one would have to suspect they had listened to a whole lot of Venom and figured, what happens if we get really coked up and try to do it even more extreme than that?
Or get coked up and go kill your mom? Yeah, that guy did that as well.
Yeah, this is another band that's sort of got mired in tragedy. One of the members, got strung out on drugs and ended up killing his adoptive mother. The story was always that he was convinced she was a robot, and so he wanted to cut her open and see if she was really a robot. And served time for that, got out of jail, drove off a bridge, and so there's stuff. They did some later music in the 90s. I've never heard it. I've heard that they kind of went in a different direction. I don't know how many original members were in the project or not. But yeah, for a long time, this has always been one of those, just really sort of weird underground cult items. But it's very aggressive, very catchy though. Again, it's got that punk vibe in it that makes a lot of the songs real catchy, real high energy, kind of bouncy, but in a very strong, dirty thrash way. It really does have the the Venom and Motorhead vibes, just cranked up to mid 1980s levels of extremity a little bit. So again, I don't really know the best tag for this. I don't think you call it straight thrash metal. I've got no problem calling it death thrash, but other folks might label it a little bit different. Last thing I'll say is this is one that was always reportedly on Euronymous' playlists as one of his favorites in the early days of mayhem around the death thrash era. So not one you hear much about, but it is, despite all the weirdness and tragedy and sketchiness about the band, the music on it is pretty damn good. So Enemy, Unholy Death.
I would have been interesting to be a fly on the wall to see what his reaction was when he realized that she indeed was not a robot. Like, what do you know? She's not a robot. I don't know.
Yep, that was not going to end well, no matter what.
No, it was not going down correctly.
Yeah, but folks in the comments, if you're familiar with Enemy, what do you think? Death thrash, black and early black metal, black and thrash? I don't know the best tag for it, except for that it's a pretty damn good album.
The consensus seems to be a lot of Venom. People are mentioning Venom. It reminds them of Venom.
Oh yeah, you cannot miss the Venom. Again, now with another 35 years of context, it's easy for us to start throwing out all these other black metal references and stuff. But in 1986, if you heard this, it was very easy. That's a Venom band. The end. All right, Marty. Enough about Enemy. What's next on your stack?
Okay, this is a band I'm relatively new to, and it's only because I somehow missed them in the early days, and been looking for this for a while. It came up on eBay. I checked them on Metal Archives. It showed this as a legitimate release, and it's by California's Ulysses Siren, which is Above the Ashes. This album is scathing, just like Sadist, scathing, just like Holy Terror. It's just really good, fast, really feral, awesome thrash. And come to find out, this is an Amazon CDR type of release, and apparently they are seen as legitimate releases. So imagine my disappointment when I got this. I'm like, what's all this blue and shit on here? And then, maybe it isn't a CDR, but it's done, I think, it's on Flight 19 Publishing. So this isn't the release item. So if anybody's got a spare copy of this floating around that doesn't want to have me donate a kidney or part of my liver, you don't want that, hit me up, because this is a elusive one for me. And every time I do find it, it's way much more money than I want to pay. But Ulysses Siren, this is a great fucking album. It's shortish because it's so fast, but 7 songs, absolutely great album. Yeah, Amazon CDR. I was so pissed when I got this. I'm like, what the fuck is this? It showed it on, it was either Discogs or Metal. It showed it on Discogs, I think. It was a legit release. I'm like, this isn't right. But yeah, I was bamboozled.
Sad.
I paid $30 for a bamboozling, by the way.
It's happened to all of us sooner or later. If you're in music for any length of time, it's going to happen to you sooner or later.
Yeah.
It is a great album, and yes, it is a pain to find, especially for any kind of reasonable price.
Yeah, exactly.
There was some hero on YouTube that would upload the full album for you to stream. Because I think for a while there, I don't even know if you can find it on streaming, to be honest, now that I think about it. So it would be up on YouTube, and it would come up as like a recommendation on my side after, and now it gets taken down. Somebody keeps copyright claiming it. But I've been curious to wonder, like, I should try it and see if somebody takes mine down. It's worth it.
Yep. Okay, you're up.
My next. All right. Well, I was gonna try and hold off before I pulled out the obvious one of Tankard. But
it's not the obvious one, but that's a great fucking record.
So this was always my favorite, and admittedly it was because of the album cover. And I did end up buying the Tankard box set, which of all the noise records that were repressed on like color vinyl and stuff like that. The first one, Zombie, whatever it was called, was always my favorite for a long time. But as I got more into Tankard and listening to their albums, this one always grew on me a little bit more. I think that the appeal about this band for me mostly is just they're just fun. They're just fun.
Oh yeah.
They just good times all around, wrote really fun songs, but also had statements within their songs that people probably wouldn't realize a whole lot.
Like puke, I drank too much.
With the exception of those. I mean, there's definitely some songs that are like, go fuck yourself.
We want to drink some fucking beer. We want to drink some whiskey. Yeah.
I mean, that's what
Deep
the
Thoughts
box
with
set is.
Tankard.
Yeah. There's definitely some of that. But I think mostly for me, this one was always the one that I loved. And I still listen to it all the time. The box set's great though. I think it's called like something 1,000 beers or something, and it's all beer cans on the top of it. Really nicely done. But I don't know. I used to love the Two-Faced one too. I think they're, all the earlier noise records have always been some of my favorite thrash albums that I still listen to all the time. I haven't ever really listened to anything past that. I also didn't quite realize that they were continuing to make albums past that. So now that's something that I need to dive into. But yeah, I was going to try and hold off on Tankard because I feel like this was one that would definitely come up eventually. If not, of course it was going to. But yeah, I love this band. I just think they're fun. Also, they're probably a band that I won't ever show my kids anytime soon for the whole drinking purpose.
All right. All right, Alan.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll follow suit because I recently finally got a copy of Chemical Invasion. Zombie Attack's probably my favorite still too. I realize it is a little simpler and a lot looser than some of the later albums, but it's very catchy. Again, it's kind of got a little bit of that punk aesthetic that I tend to like. The right amount of that in thrash works really, really well for me. But by Chemical Invasion, they'd obviously gotten much tighter. And while they're still, you're right, Melanie, they're still fun. They're still very tight with the thrash. They don't let the fun make the songs start to unravel like some some thrash bands. When they start getting a little bit on the goofy side, the songs just don't hold up very well. But Chemical Invasion, everything on here is still very tight, very direct, very forceful, exactly what you'd expect from German thrash metal. It's just that it's beer and some beer and some more beer. I'll drink to that.
Great album covers too.
Fun album covers. Yeah, I'm late to Tankard because I just always had trouble finding their stuff in the wild. It was
Not
one
anymore.
of those bands that you had a couple of compilation songs by, but could not find anything in record stores or record shows. For whatever reason, they were one that eluded me for a very, very long time. But I've been able to finally, slowly over the past few years, start to get one here, one there, one here. So I'm working on it. But yeah, very very fun band.
That Chemical Invasion is I love the band. This is their best album in my opinion. It's fun. and everything you guys said about this band is true, but their riffs are very atypical, but they're still memorable. The songs are very catchy. I love this album. I love it. It's so good. But I will jump since you got that out of the way for me. Hey, 96 people watching. Y'all rule. Thank you so much.
Wow. Yep.
That's a good night.
Good evening.
Yeah. Next up, not a lot of people talk about this band unless you're King Fowley, and they just did a cover of Pray for Death on the new Thrash Times at Ridgemont High CD that just came out. It's Blessed Death, Destined for Extinction.
Oh yeah.
This is another very atypical thrash band. They mix some pretty fast stuff along with really melodic moments. They're really solid band. I think the standout for this band is the singer, Larry Portelli. Oh my God, he is insane, over the top, just screaming in pitch vocals. This album is amazing. There's an album before it. I can't remember the name. It's got the hands praying on the cover. I should have grabbed that too. Oh, fuck, what's it called? Oh, early onset dementia, everybody. I'm sorry. Anyway, this is the better of the first two. I know there's an EP or something that came out after this, and then they kind of were done. But Destined for Extinction is another straight up banger. If you're a thrash fan, you missed this one, hunt it down. I think this has been reissued too.
Killer Be Killed. Yeah.
Killer Be Killed. That's it. Yeah.
That's it. Damn, I'm glad I need to get that back again. See, some people have argued with me that that's a speed metal band.
Well, they kind of, I mean, speed metal for we've had a show on that too. It's all relative.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
You mentioned that, so I went back and watched it, and I was like, oh man, do I not know the difference between speed and thrash metal?
It's a feel thing. It's a feel thing.
Yeah, I almost threw the yellow card at you earlier, Marty, for Holy Terror. She's like, nope, speed metal, get that out of here. But
I know, but it's so close.
No, it is. I've got no problem with it being on a thrash show at all.
If I could have found a way to work Lost Horizon into this, it'd have been the perfect fucking trifecta. We'll get to that later.
The Halloween reference a little later.
Yeah, well, they just started their tour.
There you go,
Two
folks.
shows.
We got it taken care of.
Manchester and Brixton Academy. It just happened. Anyway, Melanie, you're back.
All right, I'll get Heathen out of the way. What's this called again? Breaking the Silence.
Breaking the Silence, yeah.
Their first album, I believe.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So admittedly, I did not like this band when I first heard them, and I think I just was a little bit thrown off by the vocal style, just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a very kind of a power metal ballady voice at times. But this was one that definitely grew on me throughout the years, especially, Century Media has been putting out their stuff. And this is what it is. It's Century Media Repress. You can find these for like $10 now. This album now is one of my all-time favorites. Like I just love this album now. I listen to it all the time. And I was going to make the effort to try and get demos and stuff like that, but they just made it easy for me. And the demos are on here.
Nice.
But yeah, this one has always been my favorite, admittedly. And then, of course, their second album, I forgot the name of it now. I think Simon has the original of that too.
Victim of Deception.
Yeah,
It's
Victim
coming.
of Deception. It's coming. Okay. So
coming.
that one, I think, honestly, on the type of the day that I'm having, I might say that that's also my favorite on times. I go back and forth and flip-flop and forth. This one, obviously, it's not perfection. I think, they're getting there, but since it's like their inaugural album, it just always was the one that I grabbed, and I just, for whatever reason, the album cover just has always gotten me too. But yeah, I know I love this album. I mean, Death by Hanging is kind of a cheesy ass song, I'll admit. Just how
by hanging.
Yeah, Death by
From
Hanging.
the gallows.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, I still sing it all the time. It's still stuck in my head, and I still absolutely love it. And I
Set
still
me
sing it.
free.
Yeah. So I don't know. I've always really loved this album, but again, I feel like this band really has not done any wrong with their other albums that they put out. I think there's only 2 after this. So yeah, figured I would get this one out of the way. I assume that you guys have probably had. Well, I knew that you had Heathen because you told me at the beginning.
I was gonna pull it, but I just tried to stick to things that I spun the shit out of when I was younger. Alan's next.
But great call, Melanie. And I pulled the other Heathens, so that works just fine. This one's I've always liked this one a little bit better. the Breaking the Silence, has great stuff on it, Goblin Blade and all.
Yeah.
But this album just always really impressed me. It sounded, this came out in 91. This is basically, what I was, wanting thrash to sound like by that time. It still was, very heavy. The songs are well constructed. But it does, it's, a little more thoughtful. The songs, they have, it's topical thrash. They're talking about, religion and other things and such, but doing it in, a little bit more of a grown-up manner, not just, ooh, religion bad. Ew, don't like religion. They're putting some thought and effort into it. And thrash bands were doing that by the late 80s and early 90s. They were getting out of that teenage phase and thinking of ways to, really comment on those kind of topical things without just, saying dirty words and burping into a microphone and whatever. But always loved Victims of Deception. Just great track list, really great sound on it throughout. It doesn't quite have the same energy or catchiness as Breaking the Silence. I think most people do probably prefer Breaking over this one, but it's still just a very solid album. And this is one that, spun the crap out of in high school. A lot of friends who even weren't necessarily huge metalheads, when I could get them to sit and pay attention to this, they're like, wow, that's actually pretty good. It had appeal to kids that knew nothing beyond Metallica. They could still appreciate what Heathen was doing on that album. So I was always like, this is one of the. Here you go, try this. Let's get you into something besides just listening to And Justice for All over and over and over again. But cool band. Wish they had done something else back in the day, but at the same time, I don't. At that time. Lord knows how that would have turned out. It's probably best that they didn't, and came back now and can do some stuff. I've heard the newer albums, haven't paid a lot of attention to them, to be honest, but
the new one's kind of long and boring. The one before it is pretty good.
The first one when they came back got a good buzz. I haven't listened to them enough to comment though. But Heathen's Victim of Deception's always one of my sort of underrated favorite thrash albums from back then.
Didn't even know they made a new one.
Yeah, they've had several.
Wow.
Yeah, their new one came out last year. I want to say last year. Yeah,
What?
it's very long and kind of mid-paced.
Who put it out? Was it Century Media?
No, it was Nuclear Blast.
Oh, yeah. I typically
Nuclear Blast, where bands from the 80s go to release a new album.
Yeah, and then they charge you $40 for an LP.
I bought the CD and I got it. They must not have done well because I bought it for $3 in a
$3?
Christmas sale.
Then I'll go look now.
Empire of the Blind was 2020.
Okay.
And before that, they'd had the Evolution of Chaos was 2010. Sorry,
that's good. The really first song on that are really good. The first Evolution of Chaos. The first song's got a killer riff on it. Really good.
I did not realize it was 10 years in between those two albums.
Huh.
Wow. So they're not prolific. It does. Oop. There we go. Well, they were mentioned in the chat. There's another band that I spun a lot of back in the day.
Yes.
Blood Feast, Kill for Pleasure.
Yep, that was on. That was all right. Well, I won't show. I love. Oh my God, you have the picture disc. You gotta. All right, we're gonna talk about this.
So this album is quite unique. Another Jersey band, along with Blessed Death. Gary Markovich. Insane vocal style, just unhinged. He's a little loud in the mix, which makes it even more apparent. So good. Menacing Thunder, so good. There isn't a bad song on this thing. These guys, you could almost say, are proto-Death. They're starting to get to that point where thrash is starting to tune down maybe a hair, get a little heavier sounding, and the singer is so nutso. Could have been a death metal band if they, maybe kicked on a little heavier distortion pedal instead of using the amps to push the overdrive. But anyway, great band. They're back together, and I've heard their first comeback album. I own it on CD. It's okay. It's not it's not as good, but it's good. It's solid. I think it's a different singer on the new stuff. I don't really remember for sure, but this is a special record. Not a lot of people talk about this one either. that I've really come across or seen. I have some friends here in town that are way into it, but yeah, this is always probably the one of the best bands on New Renaissance for me anyway that I could find. There's some other good bands on there too, but this is the one that I always reached for over and over again. And the Face Fade EP is really cool too. That's just a 4 song, 5 song. Can't count either. Can't read, can't count. But yes, Blood Feast. You had something to add about that, Melanie?
Yeah, that's been on my want list for a long time. I had a CD back when I was, teenage years when buying them. Oh God, it's so good. I'm so mad at myself that I don't have it anymore. But yeah, no, and it recently a picture disc came up, and I think it was like $170 or something like that with the shipping. And I just sat there and thought about it and was like, well, if I buy this and I won't buy anything for 2 months and then it'll make up for it. And I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I would never play it because, I typically, the picture discs I want to show, I don't want to play them. So if anybody has that, just Melanie needs this list and she'll buy it from you.
Melanie, Marty, and Alan, this is our wish list. If anybody has it that doesn't want to kill us with a price, let's talk. But okay, Melanie, you're up.
All right, I'm gonna do another one that recently just came up in conversation, which I was surprised. I don't own it because again, I got rid of it and I can't find it now. So if anybody has this, band called Lich King, admittedly liked them because of the name. Their first album, Necromantic Maelstrom. So they're a relatively newer band. The first album came out in 2007, and the catch about this band is the first album, or maybe the first 2 albums, I can't remember. They only have 3, I believe. It's a one-man thrash metal band. He did everything, and it's the production is obviously not the best. But his vocals borderline that death metal style vocals. They're just angry and pissed off to hell. Little bit deeper growl style thrash metal, and this was one of those random buys for me, judged by the cover. I'm a Lord of the Rings nerd, so of course Lich King was all right. Well, I'm buying this because if it's Lord of the Ring nerd shit, I'm probably gonna love it. And I always really loved it. So they were a solo band for the first 2 albums. I'm looking at my notes now, and then they ended up getting more members, and I think they recorded a 3rd album. I don't think they're together anymore, but they're out of Massachusetts, which Massachusetts is not really known for their thrash scene. But it is very hard to get. You're right. And I tried, this is another one that's on the want list. And I think one popped up from China and it was like $15. Like, well, this is definitely a boot. It has to be a bootleg.
Yeah.
So for now, I'm just, streaming it. But again, this is one of those, I feel like a deep cut. Not too many people know about it. And if you know about it, it's probably like one of those little bit of a culty underground thing that they fanned over, probably for the name. But yeah, it came up recently. Somebody randomly messaged me on Instagram. Who was it? He just randomly messaged, hey, have you ever heard this band Lich King? And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Because I just didn't think anybody really knew what it was. So it's good. It's fun. I mean, it's not perfect. There's some things, but I'm assuming, back in 2007, I doubt he's using a drum machine. I'm pretty sure it's actually him playing the drums. But I'll have to, there's no way of knowing. There's really not a whole lot about this band anywhere. So if anybody's from that band watching this, reach out to me. We should repress more stuff.
Is it the same Lich King who done Hot for Teacher cover?
I don't think so.
I do not know. I remember the band. Yeah, they made a little splash in the underground. You're right, Melanie, around that first album. It was another one of those times where everybody was starting to feel like thrash is going to happen again, and thrash didn't happen again. But yeah, Lich King was. They definitely got some love on the internet and the forums back in the day. I don't think I ever owned it. I heard it. Maybe somebody sent it to me like in a CDR trade or something. But yeah, I definitely, very distinctive logo, the big kind of neon colored, again, the radioactive green that you got to have for thrash and all of that.
It says that they have a fairly recent album out. So
let's see. Looks like they did a bunch of albums very close together and then one in 2017.
Interesting.
I missed that one.
Is that on Nuclear Blast too?
It just says independent, which is what their first album
all
said
right.
too. So
Yeah,
were they
yeah.
ever signed to a label?
They were. It was a very strange label.
Storms. Oh yeah, Storm
Storm's
Spell.
End.
Yeah.
Storm
Okay.
Spell, not
Yeah.
Storm's End.
I forgot they were on Storm Spell. I should have known that.
Storm's End is Game of Thrones. Thinking of mixing up my nerd stuff.
Ryan, do I need to go grab some Manowar records to make you happy?
I almost put Hexen House, Peter. By the way, I was going to do
War.
Hexen House.
All
I
right.
didn't do Hexen House though.
Is Hexen House thrash though?
I consider them more to be.
I can see calling them thrash.
Really?
I'm the one album that's got the Morbid Angel cover that's not actually Morbid Angel because they did it first. I think that one is probably more thrash.
Yeah. I was never very impressed with Hexen House. I had a couple of their albums and I always felt like it's like, yeah, this is thrash, not the way I want to hear it done. It was a little dry, a little stale for my tastes, but that was 20 years ago. I might hear it and love it today. You don't know.
It's the only one that I ever really got into.
What's up, Frank? Hey, Synthetic Life. All right, here we go, Alan.
All right, Marty.
Tribute to Insanity. That's it. I couldn't think of the Hexen House name. Someone came on with it. I'm sorry. Would you say, Alan?
Oh no, it's fine. Marty, you mentioned this a few minutes ago in passing, and I had it on the stack, so I wanted to mention it. It was the Deceased covers album, Thrash Times at Ridgemont High. So, King and the guys doing cover songs from a lot of their favorite thrash bands, and it's a very fun collection, and they do a really nice job on a lot of these. Great job on Whiplash, Screams from the Grave. Good job on Artilleries, Into the Unknown. Also, you've got Razor, Voivod, Bulldozer, all the kinds of bands that King is really into. He's talked about them for years. If you haven't picked this up, next time you see it in a distro you're ordering from, it's definitely worth picking up, just for the sheer fun of hearing them do it. Deceased's always done a very good job on their cover tunes, not just picking good songs to cover, but they actually do a very good job interpreting the songs and playing them. So a lot of times for things like this type of album is the kind of thing I won't pick up because the band works through some songs. You play it once or twice, and then you never reach for it again. But Deceased always does a good enough job when they're covering stuff that it's worth repeat listens, and this is certainly no exception. So, you can hear a cool thrashy band cover a lot of cool thrashy bands. Thrash Times at Ridgemont High just came out within the past 6 months or so. So you should have no trouble going and tracking it down if you need to.
Right on.
Go. What are you waiting for? Track it down. Now. You can come back and watch us in a minute.
Hey, we crested 100 there for a second. Cheers to all you folks. Thanks for hanging out with us on Friday night.
Awesome.
And I'm going to Canada for a minute. Torment and Fire. Yep. Torment and Fire is the more vicious album. This is more produced and slick, maybe a little more Metallica-esque, but Forward Determination was constant rotation when I bought the tape back in the day. Reanimation was always a favorite. Flames of Armageddon, The Entity. Oh my God, The Entity, great song. But, there's no denying Torment and Fire 2, Turning Your Grave. I mean, that stuff was so good. Their first two albums were so good. Soldier of Misfortune, they started to get a little long-winded. I know some people really love that record. I saw them during that era, and it was okay. I was there to see them, and they were blown away by Morbid Angel. But
they were Thrash was starting to feel a little tired by that time. They were getting outclassed, and that's a good example of that pairing is a good example of how the guard was changing right at that time frame.
Yeah, and it was very evident that the new guard was really kind of trouncing the old guard.
Yeah.
You could tell Sacrifice put a lot of time and effort and thought into that Soldiers of Misfortune album. And I listen to it now and I like it, but then it was just too long-winded and boring. They're trying to get a little progressive with some of their riffs, and they're trying to get a little more fancy. I should just simple, fancy. But
they were cleaning it up some, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, I've never even heard their fourth one. Every time I go to buy it, it's not cheap.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, it's on Metal Blade.
Yeah, it's Apocalypse Inside.
Yep.
I remember. Yeah, I heard it when it came out, and it was, again, it wasn't bad, but it felt it had the same problems where it was a thrash album being put out by a band getting a bit long in the tooth at a time when thrash was not going to get much attention or love. So yeah,
was like-
you don't reprioritize your life trying to track it down.
No,
you'll get it one day and you might enjoy it, but it's you don't need to search for it night and day.
I wasn't going to pay a lot for it either. And every time I found it, it was way too much. I'm like, I know I'm going to think this is so. I mean, even when they got back together, people were like screaming how they're back. And I listened to that album. I'm like, it's okay. It's just okay. You know? But Alan, no, wait, Melanie. Yeah, I just did Sacrifice. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I'm confused.
All right. Well, Artillery.
Yeah.
By Inheritance.
That's a good album. That's a good album.
It's always been a solid one. Admittedly, this one was the only one that I had ever really heard for the longest time.
Terror Squad's really good too.
Yeah. And then as I got older and was able to buy my own music, I obviously got more into their albums. I mean, are they from Denmark? Is that where they're from? They're Danish, right? Yeah. So again,
yep.
Just really good at times. Got the little bit of the power ballad singing, just a tiny bit with the really thrashy riffage in here. Just in general, I think it's a great album. I've always really loved this album. I think Artillery, for the most part, I would honestly say this probably is my favorite just because it's more nostalgic. It's the first one I ever heard. But now that I've gotten more into it, I do want to grab the other ones. And again, I think this is another one that Simon has an OG pressing of that he has shown. But yeah, they recently just did a repressing of this. Roadrunner actually leased out a repressing. Not something that they do very often. And that this is the version that I have. So it's not an original press. But yeah, no, I love this album.
It's a good album.
But yeah, it is a very good album.
Yes, very, very good. Someone was asking about Artillery in the comments, right? And it's just like, oh, I forgot to pull any Artillery off the shelf. I hope somebody's got my back. And of course, he has my back.
Oddly enough, I recommended this to somebody. Yes, I do too. The vocalist is my favorite part about this band. Oddly enough, I recommended this to somebody who was like, hey, like I'm trying to get in a little bit more and find some other thrash that's not, Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, Slayer. And I was like, oh, you probably like Artillery. And they came back and were like, I can't get that vocal style. It's not my thing. Like they're just used to hearing, Slayer. I mean, Anthrax. So I was surprised that, that didn't tear them off a little bit, but they just couldn't get into it. So I think it's phenomenal though. So I think it's a great album. Spun it today. Still love it.
Rick is asking if that Artillery is a Revolver reissue.
It doesn't say. I got it off Discogs through Red Scroll, which is in Connecticut. It just says it was a repress. Roadrunner licensed it out to Real Gone Music.
Real Gone Music, yep.
That's what Wilson is saying. They just reissued it recently, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's nice. Of course, it's splatter, so.
Yeah. And Artillery, of course, is still around. They put out an album, I want to say last year, but if folks are curious, they've gone much more towards a traditional or slightly power metal sound. They don't sound anything like they did back in the day.
I can see that.
Proceed with, I would say, play it before you spend money for it. Listen to it on YouTube or something. Check it out just to make sure you're not going to be really disappointed with what you buy. That's what the best thing about YouTube is. You can hear it before you have to decide if it's worth paying for. Yep. If you want to blind buy it, that's of course quite okay. But if money's tight and you're really deciding, I can buy this or that, check it. Don't buy a new Artillery album expecting it to sound like an 80s Artillery album. That will not work.
I'm still a big fan of blind buying. I know it's not a smart way to go, but
that's okay.
I still love it. But it makes it exciting. If you know what you're getting when it comes, it's like, oh, this is less exciting, I guess, to put it on for the first time.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. I just know there's some folks that have to really watch how much they're spending too. So
I do. I am one of those people. Unfortunately, if I was rich, there would be no space in this basement left for anything.
Next week, Heavy Metallurgy episode 54, The Intervention with Marty.
Yes,
we need all of you back here to help.
Yep. If I win the lotto this weekend, I'm going to Amoeba and I'm going to all the record stores in the U.S. and renting a U-Haul. Oh, dude, I did not think to pull that, Eric. That would have been a great one to pull.
What did Eric guess?
Hallow's Eve, Tales of Terror.
I don't have a hard copy of it anymore, or yes, I would have. Yeah,
Great
that's
album.
a very cool album.
All right, Alan, you are up.
I am up, and we've been covering a lot of sort of cool personal favorites and cult classics, and it's time we did at least mention the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
Yeah.
It's a thrash show. It's not really fair not to mention them. As much as I hate everything they did for decades, they were the definition of excellent thrash metal in the 1980s. Those first handful of albums are classics. I picked this one because it is probably the one I play the most in recent years. Master of Puppets is probably a better album on most fronts. I've just heard it so many times. I rarely want to take it out and play the whole thing. But Ride the Lightning, I can still just throw in, play, enjoy. And a couple months later, I'll take it off the shelf and play it again and still enjoy it. It hasn't overstayed its welcome. And again, great stuff. What do we think of early Metallica with all this hindsight and where they've gone hither and yon over the years?
I feel like you're not allowed to say that you like Metallica's older albums. It's weird. People have a really weird thing about it.
I like some of their newer albums.
So, and I honestly, I don't really know a lot of their newer albums just because of the stuff that follows them. It's kind of just always a turnoff for me. I do like their S&M, the orchestra, not that they're into S&M, but like the orchestra album.
Newsflash on Heavy Metallurgy.
Laura's seen wearing a diaper, wearing fuzzy handcuffs, running down the street.
And that came out and I was like, did I say that right?
I just came on this podcast to say that I love S&M. Anyway.
I do really like that album. I'm not a fan of James Hetfield's vocals now. I think that's what does it for me. I miss his old thrashy sound. His a little bit higher sounding. He's a little bit more too rockish sounding for me. But this is one of my all-time favorite albums. I always quote it. I always say it. Creeping Death has always been one of my all-time favorite songs.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's hard not to say, like, from Kill 'Em All up into Injustice for All, I still listen to them nonstop. I know there's jokes about, the bass not being present on Injustice for All and stuff like that, but I still love the albums. I feel like I don't want to be cliche. It's like, yeah, I love thrash metal. I love Metallica's albums, but I just can't deny it. I mean, I think they're just phenomenal. I still love them. I still listen to them all the time. I do think Master of Puppets, I think that's someone that I've just heard so much. Like Battery probably plays at least once a day on Liquid Metal. So every time I get in my car, that's what's playing. It's either that or Lamb of God. Like there is no in between with that station.
Oh, don't get me started on that station. I will take us off the rails and into the weeds if you get me started on Liquid Metal's.
Luckily, I don't know. We haven't had an Alan rant tonight, so maybe we should get started on it. But no, I mean, Jose on that show, he has his favorites, and those are the ones he plays all the time. But Sean the Butcher tends to go a little bit more deep cuts and does more of the hardcore stuff. So that's good. But yeah, I mean, of course I was going to pull it out. I mean, I also had Kill 'Em All out, and I also had Master of Puppets out because I knew that they were going to eventually come up. But yeah, I mean, I wear Metallica shirts still, and then I just wait for people to come and call me a poser because that's what apparently that happens. I don't know.
Is the thing, and yeah, you're right, Melanie. It does sometimes feel like one of those bands people. Yeah, you're not supposed to say you like it, but I'm sorry. The early stuff they did was seminal. All the stuff, all the bands everybody likes to talk about, in terms of their true metal street cred. Those bands don't exist if Metallica didn't exist and do those early albums. So give the devil their due. The early stuff is excellent, and I hate the Black Album as much as any person on this planet. Probably, I will never forgive them for that album. I just can't. It's literally genetically ingrained in me to hate that album. But I will never deny what they did, especially on the first three. Justice is not my favorite, but it's still good for what it is, I guess. But no, that's why I put them on the stack. I'm just like, we could actually do an entire thrash thing and forget to talk about Metallica, and that would not be right. So yeah, hang them up.
Well, for me, I mean, they're the GOAT. I mean, they're the one that got me going in the. They got me going in the thrash direction. I heard that stuff, and it was Ride the Lightning was the first one I heard, and I laughed at it when I heard it. I'm like, what the hell is this? You know, what the hell is this? This is ridiculous. But then my friends kept saying, no, dude. Well, it clicked. And I like Death Magnetic. It's a little long, but I think it's a great riff album. I like half of the new one. After that, you know, I've got Load and Reload, and they're decent rock albums. I never had the Black Album. I picked it up at a record show on CD for $5. I said, I'm going to have it just to have it. And listen, I skipped over Enter Sandman because if I ever fucking hear that song again, oh my God, terrible. But the rest of the album is okay. I mean, a lot of it is all hits. I mean, that album is so hit heavy. Every single song you pretty much heard, but it's okay. Do I love it? Will I ever listen to it again? Probably not, but I've got it. I've got all their stuff. And,
was it the shitty $5 card stock?
No, it was a jewel case.
Because I grabbed these because they were $5 at Walmart. I was like, well, I'll just get them on CD, $5. But they're what I complain about when it comes to these digipacks. They're just real. I mean, they at least come with like it's similar like a vinyl where they come in like sleeves and stuff like that. At least there's that.
Yeah.
But
well, see, the ones I got to Ride the Lightning and Kill 'Em All on those slip cases from Walmart, and they did not have the CDs fall out of them. There was none of those in there. They went super cheap.
There he is. There's Simon. I've mentioned your name like 10 times already tonight.
You've been the source of much praise and also consternation from Melanie so far.
Just straight up envy. That's all.
What is the stat I heard recently-ish? I'm probably going to butcher the number, but I heard that the Black Album still sells 9,000 units a week.
It's insane.
Still. And it's like close to dethroning Dark Side of the Moon or something or like one of those long running albums is being still on the charts after the top 200 for all this time. It's like, you're kidding me. I mean,
it's insane. They recently just repressed
the box. They did a box set, the Black Album box set.
It's sold out. You can't find it anywhere. The Walmart variants, they're all sold out and they sell for way too expensive for flipping prices. But they recently just repressed the demos, I think. They did like a demo one.
Well, yeah, the No Life Till Leather is on like a dub tape with the stamp looking. Yeah, it's kind of shitty how they did that. I didn't like that.
But they did it on vinyl, I think, too, and it sold out like within seconds. I think they released it on like a Walmart exclusive. That's the thing; they're Walmart exclusives now, so it's insane. Like their following is insane. There are people that they live and die Metallica no matter what.
Oh yeah,
I actually would not. That'd be a good keeper read. Black Album or Dark Side of the Moon. I would pick Dark Side of the Moon easily.
Yeah,
oh, not easily.
Not even thinking about it.
Yeah, not close. I don't play Dark Side hardly ever anymore, but that one I have a fondness for from my youth. The Black Album I don't.
This is true, Scott Metal. All stats are fictional. Your favorite band is Kiss. You will listen.
Aww.
Yeah. They're one of my favorite bands. What can I say?
But no, Melanie, you're absolutely right. There are one of my friends in college was that way with Metallica. I'd tease him a little bit, here and there about, like when Reload came out and he was gushing all over him, just like, dude, this is not a good album. He's just like, look, Alan, Metallica can go into the studio and literally fart into the microphone for an hour, and I will buy it and I will love it. And I will tell everybody it sounds better than their last album. And I will do that with every single release they do from now until the end of time. And he pretty much has. So,
including Lulu?
If it's a new Metallica album, it is the best thing they have ever done until the next new Metallica album.
Wow, that's rough.
The Melanie's, it's to Melanie's point, though. Yes, they have a fan base that will absolutely consume anything they put out and call it the best thing since sliced bread.
Well, and since they're a legacy band too, they're like an AC/DC or Kiss. I mean, the dads and moms are getting their kids into Metallica, so that's why the Black Album is still selling 9,000 units a week after all this time, because it's a resetting fan base, which is pretty incredible. Say what you want, they sold out. Who knows? I mean, they started to slip for me on Injustice. I still like that album, but it was kind of like, what the hell is this? I mean, after Master of Puppets, I'm like, this is their prog album? What? There's no bass. It sounds like all the air is sucked out of it. I liked it. Because it was a Metallica album. I listened to it until I loved it when I was a kid, but I don't know.
It's not an easy listen. It is not.
It's not.
Yeah.
The songs are very ambitious. We'll say they're ambitious. And I don't really think they knew what they were doing structurally. Cliff wasn't there to help them pull the reins in. I think I watched Hetfield documentaries where he's saying that Cliff was the one that said, why are you playing that note? If you want this melody, you should play it like this. This melody would work better over that part. I mean, he was very good at that, and kind of the composer of the band helped steer the ship a little bit. And once that element was gone, they were kind of like, woo, we're going to just look all these riffs. We're going to sandwich them into this fucking song. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a good album, but
yeah, I always felt like it was just, their stab at, the, sort of higher end technicality album. Their catalog, it almost builds like, the Rush catalog. You start off, with stuff like Working Man, you work your way up to Hemispheres, and then you drop, to Moving Pictures. You just strip all that stuff away and, do something much more simple and straightforward. I always kind of thought of Injustice in that, it's, like the Hemispheres era of Rush, where they're trying to show, just, how much they can do, with, these, longer, more complicated songs. Yeah, that said, though, it's never been a favorite album of mine. It was also, fun trivia fact, the very first real heavy metal album I ever bought. And Justice for All, $5 bootleg cassette at a flea market.
Right on.
All my friends have been listening to it, and I figured it was time I owned my own copy.
Tim's got a good point. Bob Rock killed Metallica. I would say that Metallica succumbed to a producer. They said, we're going to try this producer thing. And the guy they picked just happened to be kind of a cock rock guy, and not that the Black Album is cock rocky. It's just different. It's more commercial. They got what they asked for, I guess. Yeah. Good for them.
Okay. We could talk about the directions and who is making what decision for the rest of the night, but we probably should move on. Somebody?
Is it me?
Go ahead. It's you next, but Melanie, did you have something you wanted to say?
I was going to say, people have a strong hatred for Metallica, probably similar to mine for Megadeth, which I'm sure will come up eventually sometime tonight.
I didn't pull any of the big four. I don't think. No, I didn't. I kept it because I figured, someone would talk about them, or they've been talked about a lot. I tried to pick other stuff that resonated with me back in those days, but I like Megadeth up to a certain point. I love their first. I don't like So Far So Good. I never liked that album, but the first one, the second one, and Rust in Peace are goddamn classics. Love them.
I just never could get into Dan Mustaine's vocals, I guess. They always seemed a little bit hokey to me, but I think it just got a little bit worse as I've gotten older and paid attention more to news articles. And the guy's just he's just a douchebag.
He is.
And that just kind of made it feel more justified for me on not liking them as much as I have the album with Sweating Bullets on it. What the hell is it called?
Symphony for Destruction or
something like that.
Yeah,
that's the only Megadeth.
Countdown to Extinction.
Yeah, that's the only Megadeth album I own. I think I got it through Columbia House. It was like a free 10 CD thing that you could get for $1. So I threw it in there. I just never could get into them. And there are people that just love and adore Megadeth. And I'm the person that's give me Metallica any day. I will never listen. I just don't see it. So, and I'm probably going to have a lot of people be like, what the hell is wrong with you? But again, I just don't like Mustaine's voice. I just never get into it. It just seemed a little bit hokey. And then the other stuff on top of it just made it easier for me to be like, all right, I'm not missing out on anything. I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. I'm over it.
I do want to comment here on Wade's comment here. Bob Rock didn't write the music. You know what? He might not have written those riffs, but he was sitting in the room with them and he was offering a lot of constructive criticism and direction. If you watch the documentaries that they put out around that time, he is in there sharing his thoughts on how he thinks things should go. And that is part of writing music. It's part of, he was kind of the fifth element at that point. As far the way I perceived it, being in a band, everybody that's sitting in the room has an opinion on how a piece is going to go. And he definitely had a say in how things were going to go and that whole thing. And they listened to him. And by doing that, they're letting down their guard and, giving up some reign to this guy because they're paying him big fucking dollars. It was a big move for them. They're probably in waters. Maybe he was the Cliff guy. Not saying he's as good as Cliff Burton, but he was that voice that was missing from the band. You know, the guy that was saying, why would you do it this way or do it this way? Try this, use this gear, play this guitar, play it like this. I mean, he was in on the songwriting. So did he like pick up a guitar and write the riffs? No, but he was helping sculpt that shit pretty heavy.
Marty, the way you phrased that, and all I can see in my head now is this like, picture of like, a Bob Rock with like orange hair wrapped in bandages standing outside the studio door going multi-pass. Multi-pass.
Yeah. Yep. Am I up? I'm up. Sorry, we got off on a tangent there. It's just the way it goes.
That was me.
Like a good time to do it.
Let's kick it Jesus-y. That's a fun topic.
Jesus-y.
We got some Believer, Extraction from Mortality. My favorite Believer album, and this is obviously a radio promo because it's got WNMC written all over it, which is a goddamn shame because this record isn't cheap and kind of hard to find. But this is a great album. Out of the Christian scene, I thought these guys were doing a really good job on thrash, really aggressive. There is a song on here that's annoying. I cannot remember the name of it. I can't see it. I don't know. I don't remember. Either way, this is a lot of good songs on this record. I listened to it a lot when it came out. I had a hard time stomaching the whole Jesus thing. I still do, but I don't care anymore so much. But back when I was a teenager, it bugged the crap out of me because, it was invading our music and it don't fucking matter. It doesn't matter. It's so dumb. But this is a great record. If you can score a copy of this, even on tape, it's worth listening to. A good, solid thrash record.
I really didn't know that they made Jesus Thrash, so that's interesting.
Oh yeah, they did. They got their hands in all of it, the pots.
WWJM, Melanie. Where would Jesus mosh?
Where would Jesus mosh? Yep.
That's gotta be a shirt. That's good.
Where would Jesus mosh? Yep.
Oh,
do the little DRI guy, but make it more like he's wearing a robe with longer hair and a beard in the silhouette.
He's got a crown of thorns. Yeah.
Yeah. It could be worked on.
All right. I've got a little bit of Chicago nostalgia. Abomination's self-title.
I don't know this one.
Paul Speckman of Master.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
His
Okay.
bands beforehand. So admittedly, this was a Chicago scene thing. I only knew about him because of my brother and my cousin who were heavily involved with the Chicago metal scene. So yeah, I mean, it's the only album I know. It's pretty much one of those cult classics. It almost, would look like a death metal record, but it's definitely not. It's the old school 90s thrash. The guitar sound on here is rather flat, I would say. That's probably, there we go, Simon. It's rather flat, but nonetheless, I still think it's a phenomenal record. You get past that. It's got that like very underground, raw, thrashy sound to it. So it's a really good album. So I highly recommend if you're looking for a deep cut and you're looking for something, that maybe not is as popular. This is definitely a good one. But yeah, this is a Chicago area band. And Master, you gotta love Master. So that's eventually why I have it. I think they just repressed these two because this one I got off Discogs. I don't even know. MDD Records. I have no idea. Looks like it's from Germany. I don't know. So, but yeah, it's really good. Check it out if you haven't. I love the album. The album cover is amazing.
It's almost a little bit like EXE Stricken by Might, but a little bit better artist.
Yeah, a little bit. But pretty good.
All right. Alan.
All right. Folks in the chat have been calling for this one for a while, so let's bump it up to the top of the stack. Let's go back to Canada. Let's talk Razor. I pulled Violent Restitution. I know folks tend to like a lot of the earlier albums better, and they're all good. They're just all good. I decided I'd pull this one. There's a lot of stuff I like on this one. It's a very intense album, pretty tight. the opening though, with the martial arts, the big scream going into hypertension, just one of my favorite thrash moments. I love the way they built that. The scream is just freaking insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, really good tight track list all the way through this one, and you get that with a lot of Razor's catalog. A lot of these have been reissued in the past year or so. These are on Relapse, so Relapse took care of the Razor reissues. They didn't do some of the earlier ones, unfortunately, or at least they hadn't the last time I checked. They had not done Evil Invaders or Executioner, or I think there's one other they had skipped. So, but they did Armed and Dangerous, which was a little weird. They did that and then jumped up to like the sort of mid-period stuff. But yeah, Razor was one of those bands. They got very little attention back in the day. This is one of those bands that somewhere in the past 20 years it became very, very cool. This was one of the bands you could hang your true metal street cred on. Just like, I'm into Razor. I don't listen to Metallica. I listen to Razor. So it's funny. 20 years ago, oh Jesus Christ, everybody listened to Metallica and nobody had heard of Razor much. And yep. The times change, and hey, they've got their due, which is good to see. Because they did a lot of great albums, and I'm glad they now get recognized for having put out some cool stuff.
There's a tape.
Where do you guys stand on Razor?
Yeah, there's a Full Of Your Records put out a tape box set recently.
Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I really want it, and I'll probably get it because that's just how I am.
Better hurry.
Yeah, I know that Hell's Headbangers has it, but I think theirs is a little bit expensive. I'll have to see. But yeah, that's the Razor album that I'm probably most familiar with. The Martial Arts is like one of my favorite songs that they've put out.
Yeah.
It's a great song. So that's a good album. Yeah, I didn't think to pull any of their stuff. I don't know. For some reason, I just always considered.
I didn't pull any either.
Yeah.
You've got the artillery tonight, Melanie. I've got the Razor. We're all good.
Open Hostility I even like a lot, and it's a different singer. Really good. I mean, they're just a violent, good thrash band. Maybe even a little speed metal-y at times here and there. Evil Invaders is probably my favorite. I like Violent Restitution as well. Custom Killing is really good. I mean, they really haven't put out a turd that I've heard. I haven't heard all their albums, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. The ones I have, I all like, but
I feel like there's one in their catalog.
There's one turd.
It's the one with the face on the building.
Oh, Decibel Rebel or
something like that. Decibel something.
Something Decibel.
Yeah. Shotgun Justice I've only heard a couple of times. I can't. Decibels, the last full
Decibel,
that one.
Decibels, yeah.
Yeah, one usually does not get spoken of all that favorably, but anyway, again, they had a good run of albums.
Drunken, I don't own any Mekong Delta. I've been meaning to. I just don't. Unless Alan's got some in his stack. Maybe he does.
I had some once upon a time. I do not. So sorry. We have failed you when it comes to Mekong Delta.
Fail.
Melanie? Maybe?
Mekong Delta?
Yeah.
No.
We were 0 for 3 on Mekong Delta. Yep. Yeah, I had one or two of the albums way back in the day, but haven't heard those guys in ages.
You would think old thrash albums would be easy to find because people would just be selling them for cheap, thinking, they're not worth anything. But you go to look for them and they're just insanely stupid prices. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's worse than some of the death metal stuff I'm looking for. So.
Yeah. It's gone through cycles. In the mid and late 90s, yes, you could walk into a used record store and walk out with Razor vinyl for $3 a piece, and the cashier was thankful that you actually were getting it out of their store. They're like, "Thank you. Please come back and buy more of this crap because nobody else is."
Those early days of eBay, you could sit at night and fill a cart up of really cheap records and get them in there in good shape.
Yep.
It was great. It was good times. Now you go on eBay, it's like, what the fuck? They're listing 30, 40-year-old cassette tapes that are shit. They say tested, but you get it and it's garbage. I got that first Cyclone album, said tested and works. And then we get to the middle of the tape and it gets gobbled up in the damn player. I'm like, thanks. You didn't listen to this album, obviously, but prices have gone insane, man. People are just, I get it. the prices wouldn't go up if people wouldn't buy them at that price. But
yeah, I mean, and something that's hard, or it's easy for us to forget and hard for us to fathom. A lot of the stuff we're showing out, if you want an original copy of it, these are things that are 30 to 40 years old.
Yeah.
They're not lying around the local record stores the way we remember them doing, in 1997 or whatnot. At that time, yes, this stuff was all over the place and cheap and easy to find, but that's been 22 to 25. It's a quarter of a century ago, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And since that time, a lot of that stuff has been thrown away. It has been destroyed. It's not the people that really are into it. They're keeping it and they're not getting rid of it. And everybody else, they dumped it at Goodwill a long, long, long time ago. And so, yeah, it's just not out there to be found as easily, as it was. And that is hard for us to sometimes reconcile. It will, to all the, younger viewers, it'll happen to you too one day.
Yeah.
You'll be thinking, oh, Power Trip's not hard to find. What the hell do you mean Power Trip is $65? What do you mean there's only 3 copies of it on Discogs that aren't in Ukraine? Why can't I find my Power Trip CD that I want from when I was, 20 years old and digging on it? It'll happen to you too. I've seen it happen, with older generations of music fans. They go through that same cycle. You have it when you're young. You finish, quote unquote, growing up, and everybody gets rid of it, and nobody wants it. You get, into your near midlife crisis years, and everybody wants it back, and it's not there to get back, and that's when the prices go nuts.
Yep.
So, yep, it's just this. It's the way of a lot of collectibles. It's exactly the pattern. Baseball cards, comic books. They have all followed that same pattern over the decades. There's a certain window where people want that stuff from their childhood back, but you can't run back out to Walmart or Kmart to get it. Kmart doesn't even exist anymore. All the stuff I bought at Kmart, there is no Kmart. It's not to be had.
Like comics, you mentioned comics. People hang on to comics thinking someday they're going to be worth something, when really the ones that are only truly worth something are the golden age. The golden.
Yeah,
I mean.
Yeah, the stuff from before it was a known commodity that everybody, kept and sealed in, acid-free Mylar bags with, acid-free backing boards, and had it, hermetically sealed and, CGI graded and all this, collector, bullshit. Before, in the early, even into the mid 80s, nobody did that stuff with any of their stuff they collected. They threw them in a shoebox or on a bookshelf or whatever, and
they read the shit out of them too, and they're all trashed.
Yeah,
they fold them over and read them, and
we played the records.
Yeah,
we wrote our names on the records. We drew on the covers. We read the comic books. The baseball cards had a rubber band wrapped around them, and the Transformers and Star Wars toys got played with until Luke Skywalker's head was snapped off with a rubber band when you tried to attach him to something you built with Legos.
Where the lightsaber accidentally went up your nose and got stuck.
Did you get it out, Marty?
Yeah.
Good, good.
It was retrieved.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Okay. I've finished my boomer rant down memory street.
I'll lay off the vinyl for a second and show a CD. German band, The Upcoming Terror by Assassin. My favorite Assassin. I've only heard the first 2. This is my favorite of the 2. This thing is frantic, a little sloppy, and I love it. I just love how sloppy it is. I love how unique it is. You could tell they're just having a good time. The guy's look on that guy's face kind of sizes up this album quite nicely. Robert, but very good German thrash. They were not on the noise. This is on SPV Axe Killer. I don't know. I don't remember what this came out on back in the day. I got this much later. I always had the cassette and I ended up getting a CD. I'd love to have the vinyl, but I have the second one on vinyl. It's not as good as this one. This is just a sloppy, great mess of awesome German thrash. Love it.
Good call.
Good band.
Good one.
Melanie.
Me again? All right, what do I want to show? Trying to think. Trying to save some of my favorites for last.
Oh shit, Joe! You just remind me. I gotta grab that. Go ahead.
Yeah, Nuclear Assault, Handle with Care. This has always been my favorite, but I would say their first couple have always been pretty classic. Where are these guys from again? Hey, are they from? They're from
New
California,
York.
right? The Bay Area, New York. That's right.
The
They're from New
Yakas.
York. For some reason, I like wrote notes down so I remember to say things. Oh, that's right. This is from Dan from Anthrax. He left after the first Anthrax album, and then they made this. So yeah, this one I always really loved. I feel like maybe didn't get nearly as much of the attention maybe that it deserved a little bit. Maybe now more so than anything. But yeah, it's a great album. Really loved it. Really loved the vocal style on this. Very, very riffage and all that. This is obviously a Century Media repress that I paid way too much money for, but it's got a nice printed inner sheet of collage pictures. So yeah, this one I pulled. This is one that I still listen to a lot. But again, I think their first couple albums are obviously phenomenal, but this has always been the one that I've absolutely loved.
Very
really
cool.
Terrible cover though.
Yeah.
This is the one that has a little bit of it kind of gets people a little bit upset because they have, the song Search and Seizure, and it's about, the police brutality, and they get a little bit political on here, so that had turned off a little bit of people. I remember seeing that being a complaint. But yeah, I don't know, I've always loved this album, so I definitely pulled it.
I couldn't decide which one to pull the first three. Game Over,
Yeah.
I grew up with that one. I love it. Survive, I almost pulled Survive, but I forgot to grab it. But I mean, since you mentioned it, you had our back on that one too.
Yep. And just for fun, I actually ran into
really?
the drummer, Glenn,
Nice.
a few months ago at a local record store. I just stopped in after work, and he was there dropping off copies of his recent solo CD. Just songs, he was kind of, messing around with in the studio, just kind of pressing it up himself. But he'd had some health issues in recent years, but is doing really good. And Nuclear Assault is playing at least one festival here in the South. I think it's in North Carolina sometime in the middle of the summer. So
are you sure it's not Philly? I think it's the Decibel Beer and Metal Fest.
They're also on the bill for something in either Charlotte or not Charlotte, maybe Greensboro or Raleigh, somewhere more in the middle of the state. Somewhere in the late May to July timeframe. Deceased's on the bill. They had a decent lineup. Nuclear Assault was on it. Deceased's on it. Several other bands that slipped my mind at the moment, but it was tied into like a horror movie, like half horror movie, half heavy metal festival convention thing. I forget the name of it. Heavy Metal Horror Fest or something.
I think I heard somewhere that Dan said that this Decibel Beer and Metal Fest might be their last show ever. It's hard to say.
I read that too. That and then Hypocrisy said something, even though that's not Thrash, but yeah, I think I couldn't remember if it was them or Hypocrisy that said that, but yeah, I remember seeing that somewhere.
I think it was Nuclear Assault. I would think Hypocrisy are probably gonna keep going unless they're bailing out too. I don't know.
Here it is. Carolina Chainsaw Massacre coming up in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is kind of dead in the center of the state between Winston-Salem and Raleigh.
How does North Carolina have a cooler festival than?
How does North Carolina have any festival? Period. I mean, I live down here, and we don't get those.
Are you going to that? You're going to that, aren't you, Alan?
I don't know. I've had it in the back of my mind. It's June 3rd to June 5th.
I can't go.
So for folks interested, I'll post a link in the chat here in a second. But let's see who else is on the bill. If they'll show me the actual
Incantation's gonna be there.
Okay.
Stop.
Road Trip.
Perdition Temple. Man, whoever set this up knew what they were doing.
Creeping Death. I think they're out of Texas, if I remember right.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah. Nuclear Assault, Demolition Hammer, Nasty Savage.
Wow, what a lineup!
Wow.
False Prophet sounds familiar, but I can't place it right now. If I'm making faces on the camera, I'm trying to read through bifocals. So yeah, some stuff there, and a lot of other bands here too. I just don't recognize all the names.
Rick Ross is doing a special meet and greet. Wow.
So there you go, folks. If you need some travel plans in early June, there you go.
So Thrasher B. Thrash mentioned Metal Church, Where Are You? And I looked at Metal Church records, but they always struck me, they were lumped in with thrash, but I always saw them as more as US power metal.
Agreed.
To me, I mean, I think they're a fucking amazing band. I love their first two albums. I spun them as a kid until they wore out. I love that shit so much, but is it really thrash? I don't know. It's kind of splitting hairs at this point.
Yeah, it's thrash, Jace. I'm not going to yell at anybody for calling them thrash, but I would not call them thrash myself.
Here you go, Alan. Get planning this, would you?
What do we got? Heavy Melody needs to have its own music fest. Well, if we get enough in the super chat coffers over the time, who knows?
I think I'd rather hang myself than plan something like that. I don't know. That'd be
even small. I've known folks that have done a couple of small scale things, and they are very, very hard to plan and organize. There's a million things, and stuff is constantly going wrong. With you have so many people that you're trying to get. Even if you're trying to get 4 or 5 bands, which isn't a lot, that's a minimum of 20, 25 people. You're trying to get all on the same page about a schedule. So yeah, it's tough. But it would be fun, but it is definitely tough.
Peter, where do you live? Brokus Helm and Medieval Steel next weekend. Where's that at?
Oh, that's a thing.
That's a thing. Are you in the States?
That's a funny thing because Medieval Steel is Tennessee and Brokus Helm is San Francisco. So, somebody's on the road.
Yeah. All right. Who is next? Me. Is it me? No. Who just went?
I did Razor. You did. Melanie just did.
I just did Assassin. Okay.
Melanie did Nuclear Assault. Actually, it is.
Alan, I had you in place. All right.
Okay. I'll shut up about festivals and stuff and do what I'm supposed to do, which is show another cool thrash album.
Brokus Helm is playing in Chicago.
Huh. Okay. Cool. Brokus Helm, good band. But the next band I will show, first Anacrusis album, Annihilation Complete. Oh, did you have it?
I had the second one. I pulled the second one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. This one to me is the most thrashy out of their catalog, which is why I pulled this one. Really good album. It's essentially their demo that they had sent in, and record label essentially just put the demo on vinyl, which the band wasn't all that happy about.
Yeah.
It got touched up some by Stormspell Records years ago. Nice CD package.
And later he re-recorded the first 2 albums on a 2 CD set. Yep.
Yeah, they've tinkered with them over time, trying to get them to sound a bit better. But sound quality issues, on the original versions aside, very good thrash album. It's definitely, as I said, Anacrusis' most straightforward album. But even there, it's got elements that set them apart from the standard fare of the day. There was never any chance that even this album would get lumped in with just all the other, quote unquote, generic thrash that was getting put out. And the band, of course, very quickly went into sort of more of a progressive trajectory, remaining heavy, but definitely getting a much more unique and distinctive style over the years. But if that's not quite your thing, if they got a little too arty or whatever for you, and you just wanted to kind of strip that away, you can always go back to the early stuff with Suffering Hour, and it's a really, really strong album. I'll still go back and play that one quite regularly, even above and beyond some of their later albums some of the time. Sometimes you just want to hear them cut straightforward on things, and it's a really strong outing on their debut.
Someone said Riot and where the fuck is it? Fifth Angel and Riot are also playing that fest as well.
The Chicago one or the?
Yeah, it must be the Chicago one.
Okay. Yeah, I know Riot is done.
Riot 5, I guess it is now.
Yeah, Riot 5 was playing somewhere else recently because Melissa had pointed it out to me. Just like, oh, but we'll stay on track.
All right, here we go. I'm just going to show this real quick. I picked Reason. I love all their records. This one to me is the mix of the raw thrash with more of a personal emotive vibe going on in it. Although the second song, Terrified, is just absolutely crushing. Ken Marty's vocals are like he's skinning a cat, man. When he screams, it just sounds like a fucking cat getting crushed. It's amazing vocal, and he can still do it. I mean, of course, he's recording. I don't think he's playing live much anymore, but so good. But I do want to get to. Someone mentioned him in the chat, and I realized I did not pull it. But man, I'm a champion for this fucking record. Dead Brain Cells. This thing is a fucking crushing Canadian. There's a little bit of hardcore in this, a punk hardcore feel, but it's just plowing fucking metal, awesome, fast, so aggressive. I mean, their second album, Universe, they got really weird. They kind of, I ended up liking it, but I remember loving this record so much when Universe came out, I bought it, and there was like some Voivod shit going on, and then it was like, the singer Phil, was that his name? Phil Dankin. He was like talking through every song. It's like a narration, kind of a melodious narration. Have you ever heard Universe, Alan?
I don't know if I have. That does not sound familiar.
But this album, Lies, Monument, there isn't a bad song on here. It's short because it's so fast. It is such a great fucking record. Get it if you can find it. It's so good. It's a good road trip thing. You'd listen. I put it in and listened to it for a week. You can hear it on a trip a couple times because it's so short, but such a fun, crushing record. So good. Excellent Canadian thrash. Love it.
Yeah. I think, is that one, was that reissued by Dive Bomb or Storm Spell? I know I've seen it on one of their distros recently.
I think Dive Bomb reissued them, I want to say. Yeah, it was Dive Bomb, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Melanie, you're back.
All right. I was going to hold off, but I guess I'll just talk about it.
I'm glad you pulled. That's my favorite Sodom, hands down. Love it.
I mean, this is one of my all-time favorite albums, just in general.
So good. Christ Passion, love that fucking song.
Yeah, Christ Passion. I think I have that written out in here about how I love that song. I like the Motorhead cover that they did, Iron Fist. Basically, the self-titled song, just towards the end where it's like fading out and he's doing that like whisper talking and then it ends in like that growl. Like, I don't know. I really love this album. I know like a lot of their later stuff I have never really gotten too much into. They went a different direction that I was never a big fan of. And obviously their first record was a lot more black metal-ish sounding. And I still think like with the vocal style of this, it could almost sound a little bit like black thrash but this has always been one of my favorite albums. So I had to at least mention it tonight.
Oh yeah, so good.
Like I still love this album. I listened to it like 4 times today. It's one of those albums where when I pull it out, I'm going to listen to it over and over again because it's one of those nostalgic things. But I couldn't tell you to save my life what any of their newer sounding records sound like. It's one of those bands I just never really followed all the way through, unfortunately. But yeah, they at least had to be called out.
Oh yeah, definitely so.
A lot of people really have praised the last few albums they've done, but I like pick a few songs on Spotify, and I just don't like Tom's vocals as much as like on Persecution Mania. He's just got that evil snarl going on.
Yes,
it's so
evil.
Good. So good.
Yeah.
Alan, you're up.
Yep. Yeah, I think Persecution Mania is easily my favorite, and it's really the only album that has that sound, which maybe that helps make it a little more special. Before that, they don't sound like it, and even afterwards, I mean, they're closer to that sound when they're doing things like M16 and all that. But I don't know. I feel like they got stuck a little bit in a more straightforward thrash groove afterwards. This was the one I had pulled. I like this album a lot. I know it has its flaws, but it's just a personal favorite. This is the wax something, the repress that it's the 2 LP version that has both the steam hammer and
so cool. That is such a cool edition. Yeah,
it's neat. They did the labels to even sort of look a little bit like that's the Metal Blade pressing, of course. It's also nice just to have them both versions, and there's the one that has the steam hammer.
Very cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Version on
that's
it.
really cool.
Because different CD pressings, it's very hard to figure out which version you are getting. Sometimes a lot of them tend to be mislabeled even on Discogs. So it's nice to be able to hear the actual differences side by side. But Persecution is still it's the better album, no doubt. Anyway, what I was going to show for this entry was a little personal pet favorite band. Never hear anybody else mention them, but Tennessee, if I remember right, Intruder.
Never heard them. I've always seen them around in bargain bins, typically.
Yeah. I mean, they were very much they were a sort of generic thrash band from the time, but I liked their vocals. The songs were pretty good. Yeah, very much what you'd expect from late 1980s thrash. This is just an EP they did. Escape from Pain. Uh, good stuff if you want the sort of second tier thrash metal band. You want something that's a little bit different but close enough to the formula and done well. You could certainly do a lot worse than any of the early Intruder stuff. Higher Form of Killing's probably their best album. The first album I haven't heard in ages, so I won't comment on it. They did one third and last album called Psycho Savant, but it was another one that came out like around 1993 where, like the Sacrifice Soldiers of Misfortune, it was just feeling like, yeah, you guys are a little past your prime at this point. Not bad. I bought it, I listened to it, it's all right, but it just didn't really connect the way the earlier stuff had by that point in time. But Intruder, definitely, it's still a decent band. I've got a soft spot for them, so I definitely wanted to show them off and give them a shout out.
Nice. Never heard them.
It's not the end of the world. You're not missing anything life altering, but it is definitely better than a lot of the other thrash albums that you might see in that same cutout bin for sure.
Okay. Well, the first 3 corner albums are damn near perfect to me. I had a hard time choosing, but I always go back to R.I.P. This is my favorite corner, I guess, on the early stuff. I also like No More Color a lot. I mean, I really love that record, but this one is probably their darkest, and it's just got such a cool fucking atmosphere to it. It sounds so European to me. For the time, it didn't sound German because it wasn't German, but it was on a German label. And this album is so good. It's so perfect. You get the CD either as a bonus track, Spiral, something. I can't remember the fucking name of the song right now. God damn, Onset Dementia. I tell you, it's a thing. Great album. It's really hard. I mean, Punishment for Decadence, the guitar work on that thing is off the charts amazing. Songs like Skeleton on Your Shoulder. I hated how they mixed down the vocals too low on it, but it's still a great, amazing album. But RIP's got the atmosphere, that evil, dark atmosphere. It's very cool. It sets it apart from the rest of their catalog for sure. Very good album.
I always thought they were a Death Doom band. I don't know why.
No.
No, I know they're not, obviously, but just whenever I would see them, like in the store or something like that, just for whatever reason, it always came off as a Death Doom band. Obviously,
well, I guess that album cover, it kind of looks like it would be a Doom cover, For
yeah,
sure.
I mean, well, the band name too.
Yep.
But no, I think No More Colors, the one that I almost pulled it, and I thought, I'm sure somebody's gonna at least talk about them. So you got to get mentioned at least once tonight.
Exactly.
Oops, sorry, you're up, Melanie.
Oh, am I?
Yep.
Let's see. I feel like because the rest of the stuff I have is pretty standard. Somebody mentioned that Bonded by Blood by Exodus was their best album, and everything past that is trash. I 100% disagree with you. Impact is Imminent has always been a great album of mine. I've always really liked that album, so I'll call that out as my next pick because I did have Bonded by Blood as a new, of course, Exodus has to come up tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But Impact is Imminent has always been one of my favorite Exodus albums. I really like it. I would say, AWOL, whatever that is. That what it is? AWOL. That song has always been one of my favorites. But again, Bonded by Blood obviously is the Exodus album that everybody's going to call out, and of course, Fabulous Disaster is the other one that I've always listened to. But yeah, I figured since somebody brought up Exodus, that'll be my next thing that I say.
Yep.
All
no,
right.
and folks have been calling for it, and Impact has some definitely fun stuff on it. Changing of the Guard is one of the tracks on it I liked a lot, if I remember the title right.
Yeah.
You're right. Bonded by Blood is the album you're supposed to like and you're supposed to mention, but Fabulous Disaster is the Exodus for me. This is always the
some really killer guitar work on that record. Some really good stuff, really tricky stuff.
It's a fun album. Yes, we could do without the Lowrider cover, but okay. You get one. Every album gets one bad song. I can live without it. But yeah, fun album, fun band for the most part. I'm not real big on the newer stuff I've heard by them. It's not quite connected with me, but that's just me.
The Atrocity exhibition is not that bad. I got used to that. There's a couple songs there that I really enjoyed. I'm not big on the newer album. I guess I need to give it a little bit more of a chance.
Yeah,
it's
I haven't
it's
heard
hard.
it yet.
Yeah, it's hard to not like Gary Holt. I just feel like he's such a strong personality.
Yeah.
So like I don't, and like he's just an all-around funny guy too. I don't know if you guys follow him on Instagram, but he's got a really good personality. But he's also incredibly fun live.
Yeah.
I've seen him in Exodus, and I've also seen him play with Slayer and their farewell tour. So it's hard. I try to keep an open mind when it comes to their albums, but I wouldn't mind if they stopped making them. I feel like their legacy is good with where it's at.
I recently picked up Blood In, Blood Out, and like a lot of these old bands doing thrash, the album's a little long, but it's solid. I mean, it sounds like Exodus. I liked it. I don't love it, but I liked it.
Yeah.
All right, Alan.
All right, I've shown this one several times before, but it's a favorite. It fits somewhere in, again, the speed versus thrash territory, and I think James was just mentioning this band in the chat a minute ago. He was asking for Power and Pain, but you'll have to settle for Ticket to Mayhem.
Oh, Whiplash.
I just love this album. Power, and the others are good too, but this is always the one I go back and want to hear over and over again.
It's really good. I like Power and Pain maybe a bit more, but
the last nail in the coffin, Burning of Atlanta, just screaming insane over the top kind of stuff.
Great.
And I mean, you got to be real confident in your masculinity to put this on your freaking album cover in any day and age, because that's a thing right there.
Yep.
It's a pretty awful cover.
Yeah. You always have those questions in the back of your mind. If you ever meet somebody, you just want to ask them. I want to know from the guys in Whiplash, whose idea was this, and why did everybody go along with it?
It was probably the label.
Okay, but somebody. I mean, there's at least two people probably, unless it was because it's not a noise, so it wasn't completely a one-man decision being made. Somebody came up with this idea, and at least one other person said, cool, let's go with that. And I would like to hear from those people and know exactly what the hell they were taking that day. But regardless of how bad the cover is, the music on it is absolutely phenomenal. Great fun, power, speed, thrash, just insane goodness. Gotta shout out Whiplash, even though I've done it several times before.
Good album. Yep. I picked Power and Pain. I mean, both those albums are great. There's no, it's like battling over two awesome things. It's irrelevant, but they're both great.
Yeah. And sadly, it's another one like we've talked about before. In my mind, I can still go to a record show and find that, for $3-4 like I did. In reality, you can't find it anywhere, and when you do, they want $100 for a copy of Power and Pain now. It's just
wow.
Ain't getting that part of my childhood back, and I'll just be content with listening to it on the YouTubes instead.
How much was that box set?
I had no idea. I didn't even see that it was available.
And someone mentioned, while you check that, Melanie, someone mentioned, it was Thrash or Be Thrashed, mentioned in the comments earlier that there are reissues for these things, and that is worth pointing out. Nobody should ever feel bad about buying a reissue. If you don't have to have an OG press, a lot of times you're getting bonus tracks and cleaned up sound and better liner notes on the reissues. So, nobody listening to this should feel like, I've only got, some later reissue thing. I don't have original vinyl. My steel is not true. Hell no. There's nothing at all wrong with getting a reissued version of an album.
And really, if you buy an OG, you're paying a lot of money for something that, you can take a person, you got to try to trust a person that's grading it when you buy it, but it's an old record that's been partied on a lot. Those, it might not sound as good because it's been played so much, and you don't know what kind of record player it was played on. It might have been played on something with 1 million quarters stacked on it. Who knows? Yep. It's like,
now, as we can see here, not everybody agrees with that particular sentiment. So, if you want Aaron to stay subscribed to your channel, you better stick to the OGs.
It's funny. We talk about that frequently, about buying original presses and forking the money out for it. And
Yeah, there are some things I'll admit. There are some things I want the original press for, just for specific reasons, but certainly not for everything. There's a lot of stuff we don't talk about a lot. Half my music collection is in digital only format. I have no problem with that in a lot of cases too. So everybody, buy and get what you're okay with and what fits your budget and how you want to consume music. You do not have to buy all these old dusty 40 and 50-year-old records for other people to think you're cool or to prove anything about yourself. Absolutely not.
All right.
Public service announcement done.
Showing this album a ton. First 3 Death Row records are amazing. I love them all, but Deception Ignored is a tech thrash masterpiece. It's really, really busy, but I love the songs. They somehow pull some memorable hooks and shit out of a very technical record. I love the strange German styled accent and the vocals. I just love this band, and even the Life Beyond album is really decent. It's a little bit of a step back from this, but love this record. I'll champion it forever. And if you have not heard it, check it out. It's a great song in particular. If you want to check out a song from this album, Machinery, the closing song on the album is so good. So good. Such a great song. It's on one of the Doomsday News comps. I think it's on the second one. Amazing, amazing album.
And apparently a copy of it has migrated to Australia.
Yep. There we go. There he is.
Yay, about time. Issued, but people, you're up. Yeah, sorry. I was trying to keep a lot of people in the comments. I'm having a hard time keeping up.
Yeah.
All right. So while we're on the topic of technical thrash, I've always personally liked Toxic. I don't have it on anything. Think this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very technical thrash. I would say pretty out there in terms of standard thrash music goes. I'd say it's pretty different in that sense. I can see why it's a little bit of an acquired taste because of the technicalities to it. It has a little bit more elements to it. It's not just this ferocious assault on your ears. But yeah, I've always really enjoyed this album. I'm not too familiar with their other albums. They do have several other albums out, I believe. But yeah, it's that classic thrash cover. Actually, I think they only have 3 albums out now. Then they just came out with a new album. Well, anyway, sorry. They're from New York. New York, yeah. Okay, there we go, Brian. I thought I'd.
Sorry, Alan.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'll let you go. I'm the chat's like freaking me out. Sorry. I'm trying to listen and like read people's stuff. I'm like, I can't keep up.
But yeah, I think this was always one of my favorites to listen to. So I would say definitely in terms of thrash, it's more of that technical thrash element to it.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the first one, the one with the replica cover with the clown and the World Circus.
Yes.
Is that what it's called? Yeah.
Yep.
I have that on tape.
Yep. Yeah, I think they were on Metal Massacre. They were one of the better bands on Metal Massacre 9, if I remember right. The one with the hockey player on the cover.
Everybody, Metal Mayhem and other people are talking about Accuser, and the few Accuser things I've checked out, it didn't really click with me. And I'm always like, someone maybe needs to point me to the Accuser album I need to check out because there's quite a few of them. And I've seen a lot of people in the VC talk about them and I'm like, what am I missing? What am I missing? So maybe someone point me in the direction and we'll check it out for sure. Alan.
Okay.
Good pick, by the way, Melanie. I would not have thought to pick Toxic. Good one.
Yep. Yeah, I don't have it. So yeah, I didn't think about it either. But folks have enjoyed some of the death thrash. This one's maybe more doom thrash. Is that a thing? Are we allowed to have doom thrash? I'm not sure.
No.
Okay. Well, maybe death doom thrash. It'll make sense when you see what it is.
Okay.
Into mystery. It's thrashy, but it's slow thrashy, heavy thrashy. They always had kind of a cool, unique vibe, whatever you want to label it as. It's not something I take out to play a ton, but I always dig it when I do. It was this weird little niche within thrash parameters, but I'm hard pressed to think of other bands that did something similar to them And yeah, they get cited as an influence more on the slower side of the metal spectrum, just as much as on the thrashy side. So cool album, cool cover. Not a whole lot else to say about it, except for it was sort of a unique one and not one that ever gets mentioned very much. So I figured it'd be one of my more cool sort of sleeper ones that maybe folks haven't checked out and want to give a little love and check it out sometime.
It's kind of a deep cut. I've got that one on tape, and I gotta say, I bought it thinking it was going to be a thrash record, and it never really clicked fully. I liked it, but it never like blew me away, because I think it's more of maybe a little bit more trad doom influenced here and there. I don't know.
Yeah, again, it's got a slower pacing, but I mean, if you're listening to it, it's like, this is thrash, but it's slow. It's like, I wasn't kidding. It's kind of doomy thrash. It kind of works.
Okay. Well, Alan called it. First two I have a hard time picking, but I always end up on this one because I listened to this album so much when it came out.
Oh.
Poked myself in the fucking eye. Dreamweaver by Sabbath. English thrash, I've got a handful over the years. English scene, we've talked about this before on here. They always seemed a little late to the party with really, really good solid bands. Although I have another one in here coming up that I consider a fucking classic. But I like Cerebral Fix. I've got DAM. They're pretty good. Zentrix. The only Zentrix I have ever owned is the Ghostbusters EP, and that is a hot steaming cassette tape of garbage. It's terrible. So it never made me want to run out and buy more Zentrix. So I really can't. Everybody's like, oh, you need this, you need that. Well, I don't know. We'll see. But this is a great record. Martin Walker he crammed. You look at the lyric sheet on this thing, it is insane. There are so many lyrics on here, and he somehow sandwiches them in to work in these really well written thrash songs. Love it. Love the artwork. Love the whole presentation of this whole release. History of a Time to Come is maybe a little more straightforward, a little more satanic. Very great album. Awesome. I mean, comparing the first two is tough. I just went to this one because I spent so much more time with it, I guess.
No, that's fair. It's probably the better album, on most points. I listen to History more often, but it's a great album. That is a very funny one, because that one, inexplicably, a copy did make its way into my little southern rural high school when that album came out. And it wasn't a kid who normally listened to a lot of heavy metal, but hanging out in study hall one day, everyone's sitting there with, their Walkman, not doing their homework and stuff. I says, hey, Randy, what you playing? And he showed it to me. I'm just like, I've never heard that. He's just like, he's like, here, borrow it tonight. Make a copy for yourself at home. You'll like it. I was like, okay. I'd never heard of the band. And I took it home, made a copy of it, and played that copy a whole heck of a lot.
Yep.
Took it back to Randy the next day. He's like, thank you very much. This is really cool.
Nice.
So I had no idea what made him buy it, where he found it. Really, a random encounter. I can't stress how weird it was having a copy of a Sabbath cassette in this southern town with literally two stoplights. In what would that have been, like 1990 ish? I mean, it'd be like going to one of these ancient Roman excavations, and you find like a VCR sticking out of the rubble where it's been untouched for the last several centuries. It doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't be there.
Wait, what did you say that guy's name was?
The guy in study hall?
Yeah,
Randy.
Was he green?
He was not green.
He didn't have a cabbage head.
He did not have a cabbage head. He was not made of lettuce. Not that Randy.
Oh, okay. It's just a weird something that was a weird comeback around there. I was wondering.
It was worth a try, but missed that connection. But you're right about British thrash too in general, Marty. There are good albums, but you kind of have to pick here and there to find some of the good ones. This is one I always like for British from that era.
I'm sorry, I've got it messed up here. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just quick. Another good British, on the thrashy side of
that
things.
one's good, but this one is better. This
There's
album,
nothing wrong with that one at all.
so fucking amazing. Oh my god. My favorite,
wrong with
one of
that
my
at all.
favorite English thrash albums right here, The Force. This thing is perfect. It's evil. The riffs are killer. I don't know, man. I just like everything about this damn record. It's so good.
That's another one that made it into my little podunk high school of all places. And the guy offered to sell me his copy for like $4. And I'd already used all my lunch money that week buying other stuff. And so I couldn't buy it from him. And it took me years to find that album again, because it was just like, I missed it. And so it was on, I could not find it forever. I eventually, it was probably literally like, let me think. It was probably about 8 years before I ended up finally managing to buy a copy of that album for myself after having missed the $4 used cassette at the lunch table in high school.
Right. Okay. Melanie, you're back.
All right. So this is my favorite thrash album of all time.
That's a great
Demolition
record.
Hammer, Epidemic and Violence, or of Violence. Second album, I really don't have their first album, which is also a great album. So This was a bit of a grail for me. I got this a really long time ago. I found it on eBay for $20.
Wow.
Believe it or not.
Wow.
So whoever sold it did not realize what kind of a cult classic they had here. New York thrash, just, I don't know. It's a perfect album to me. And the cover obviously is the second half of Lovecraft's that they did, and the first half is on was it Cause of Death by Obituary? Yeah. So always a little tidbit. Together. But yeah, this has always been one of my all-time favorite albums, one of my all-time thrash albums. I still listen to it all the time, and I wish I had it on another copy just because I'm going to listen to it so much that it's going to get to the point where it's going to be unplayable.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just top-notch, perfect album, nothing wrong with it. Love it. Listen to it loud. It's in your face. Face melting is what I always say.
It is face melting for sure.
But yeah, there's the full picture on the
there we go.
Craft collections.
Yep.
Little Cause of Death on there, little Demolition Hammer.
Yep.
It's interesting that that's how they sold the piece. I thought that was a cool little fact.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. You're up, Ellen. I'm going to go use the little boys' room while you guys are chatting amongst yourselves here. Go for it.
Yeah, sure. Not one of the big four, but maybe they were in the next four. Maybe the four after that. I don't know. Top 10, top 12 somewhere. Folks have mentioned them in the chat a couple of times. And I had it pulled, just hadn't got to it yet. Death Angel. But I pulled Frolic Through the Park, which folks are sometimes a bit mixed on this one. I always thought it was a fun album. I like the variety on it. I realize it's not, the just straight ahead pummeling thrash of ultraviolence, but ultraviolence is fine. Maybe it's a tad one-dimensional in what they're doing, but again, they were like 14 or 15 years old when they recorded ultraviolence, so you can only expect so much nuance at that point. But I always thought Frolic Through the Park was, a kind of a fun, different one. Maybe folks don't like the Cold Gin cover and stuff like that. You get one. Every album gets one. You can have one bad track and still be a good album. But yeah, another band. I was not a big fan of Act 3 when it came out. It was another one where just the band was feeling kind of tired by the time they got to that difficult third album. And they, of course, have come back, and I haven't checked out a ton of their newer stuff, but it seems okay. When I hear it, it's kind of like, okay, that's not bad. It's never good enough that I want to run out and really invest in a lot of time or money buying the new albums, but it's not something where I immediately turn the station or skip to the next video either. So they seem to be one of the relatively successful comeback thrash bands in recent years. But yeah, I understand why people sometimes don't like Frolic Through the Park. But for me, it's just one of those personal favorites that I like having on the shelf, taking out every now and then and just having a fun listen to. So Melanie, where do you stand with Death Angel?
Death Angel, admittedly, was one of those bands I never really got too much into.
That's quite okay.
I don't know if it's because it maybe did seem a little flat for me. I don't know. It was just not one of those bands. I guess maybe try and listen to it again, but I tried to this time. This week I pulled out I have them. I just didn't pull them out. I pulled out Darkness Descends, and I think that's probably the one that I just can never get through fully and really appreciate it as much. We Have Arrived, obviously. Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't always them, but it was always the other angel that I always appreciated, which I pulled. So,
well, the Casablanca angel.
Yeah, there were a lot of angels flying around in the thrash scene by the end of the 1980s for sure.
Iron Angel.
That was more of a German power thing, but yeah, I mean, you had Dark Angels, Death Angels, Fifth Angels, Seventh Angels. You had Angel Witches earlier in the decade with the new wave of British heavy metal. We'll do a name game episode one night and see how long we can keep the chain going.
All right, I am up. Okay,
Or up, sir.
Well, I couldn't get out of Germany without talking about this record. I struggle between this and Infernal Overkill. I love Infernal Overkill. It's got Bestial Invasion on it, which is a classic. It's a darker record, a more evil sounding record than this. This is a really weirdly produced album, but man, it's like all the room ambience was sucked out of this record, but I love this thing. There's so many insane riffs on this thing. Such a solid, well-written, technical thrash album without coming off as techie. It's weird. They had their own style. No one sounded like them. And Destruction's tour, they just played Detroit a couple nights ago this week, and it's basically Schmear. Mike's not in the band anymore. It's just Schmear and some hired hands, but there is no denying the first three Destruction albums. The first two in particular for me, I liked Release from Agony, but again, it was a little bit more refined, I guess you should say. But this album is a classic, absolute classic from beginning to end. Love it. Absolutely crushing German thrash metal. Great. Great.
They have a new album out, and I always get it as a suggestion to buy. I haven't heard it yet, though.
Yeah. That's one I actually have played because it keep coming up in YouTube. I've played it a couple times. It hasn't really wowed me. It doesn't sound bad, but it hasn't. Nothing has really clicked on it so far.
Nick says the new Destruction is killer. Okay.
Yep.
There's been other people in other weeks wanting us to talk about it, and I haven't heard it. Apparently, it's good.
I have to listen to it.
Yep. Again, first impression is pretty average, but it's just the first impression. I haven't
another one here, Tim.
I haven't given it the focused listen yet.
Tim says it kicks ass. Huh. Cool.
All right.
Okay, you're up, Melanie. Yep.
All right. Well, let's get the elephant out of the room and just talk about one of the greatest thrash bands ever. I pulled my two personal favorites that I listen to probably the most. But the one that you're holding, Marty, is phenomenal.
This is one of my all-time favorites. Top 5 album for me of all time. I love this fucking record. So
I
good.
obviously have the box set that they just came out with last 2 years ago, and it is such a pain in the ass to get off my shelf, to pull the saw thing off and pull them all out. So I just grabbed the 2 CDs that I actually own. But I just a creator as a whole. Even some of their newer stuff I dig. Like I do like this one, Violent Revolution.
That's a good one.
This was.
It was a kind of good return to form, really, because they had a long time where they were spinning their wheels. Endorama, what a shit fucking album that is. Oh my god.
And like terrible. Phantom Antichrist is not too bad. Their new album comes out soon, and the single that they released, it's all right. It sounds okay, but I always fall back to the older ones. But yeah, these are CDs I pulled out just because I don't want to pull the vinyl out. But yeah, the one that you're holding is probably just the one that I listen to still all the time.
Pleasure to Kill is probably, it's a real close tie to this one, but I just connected with this album. So it's so well written. They never were this good again. Everybody's like, Coma Souls, Coma Souls. Coma Souls sounds tired after this album. There's some good shit on it. I like it. I know it. But it's just not as good as Extreme Aggression. They were at their peak, absolute peak at that album.
Yeah, I feel like people sometimes forget about them, and I'm like, no, Creator's one of the greatest bands to ever live. Do not discredit them in the thrash scene.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'm late. I was late to Creator. It's funny with the German bands. Destruction in Sodom, I could find stuff by. Got into tape trade and stuff very early. Tankard and Creator, a couple of songs here and there on compilations were all I ever had access to. Nobody I hung out with listened to them. They never came up in tape trades. So I've been chipping away at it a little bit here and there, again, just in the past year or two. But yeah, there's still a lot of their catalog I'm not familiar with. They just never turned up in the wild for me. Don't know why.
Huh? That's weird.
They have a lot of albums. They're one of those bands that have a lot of albums, and they definitely have a distinct sound on their newer ones. They have catchy songs on their new albums. I will say that some of it is a little bit hokey. Like they have the Horde song, I forgot what that's called, where it gets a little bit melodic, and it reminds me a bit of some power metal, heavy metal sounding, like it, raising the tankard to them and stuff like that. But for the most part, I feel like in general it could be a lot worse, and they haven't really made an awful album, but the first several are just untouchable in terms of thrash.
All right.
Commercial extreme metal. Yeah, I guess that's a good way. Stadium metal.
You're up, Alan.
All right. There are certain bands we haven't mentioned yet that we have to, if we want to call this a thrash episode. I pulled this one kind of at random, but let's talk Slayer. So you can't talk thrash without talking Slayer. There's obviously we could talk all night about Slayer, but in terms of thrash, and with it, one of the big four. It's been a long time since they released an album I really cared about. Oh,
yeah.
I like the later 80s and early 90s stuff more than most people seem to these days. I don't know. Where do we all stand on Slayer?
Early shit's eternal.
I mean, obviously they're one of my favorite bands, so I obviously own like everything by them. But South of Heaven has always been one of my favorite albums by them, and then
I like that one too, and that one seems to take a lot of crap from some people.
Yeah, I don't really understand why. And then Season Abyss obviously is my other favorite one, but there is no denying like Hell Awaits is amazing, and I'm blanking on the other one. I like obviously the one that everybody talks about is Rain and Blood. And that's for me, that has just been an overkill. Like, unfortunately, radio killed that album for me.
Not me. I put on Still Rage.
But like, I love Christ Illusion. I think that's a great album. Divine Intervention was an acquired taste for me. Eventually, I grew to love it.
It's a good record.
There's some good stuff on it.
But yeah, I mean, Slayer's one of my all-time favorite bands. I love all their albums in different ways. It's like, you have 3 kids and you love them in different ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I pulled Hell Awaits because I think this one, in terms of like thrash sounding, I think they were just top notch on this one as a whole. But I pulled pretty much everything else too because I knew eventually they would come up.
Show No Mercies is my favorite still, but Rain and Blood's close on its heels. And then the EP too, Haunting the Chapel. It's got some of their best songs, Chemical Warfare. I mean, there's some great stuff. All that. I mean, Hell Awaits. None of that early stuff is bad. It's so good, so iconic.
So good live too. They put on such a great show. I think the one thing that just makes me laugh is that they were so scary back then. Like there was so much. There was so much media attention that tried to ruin them because of a satanic band, and it's just kind of like, come on. Like later you find out, obviously, like Tom Mariah's a devout Catholic and all these things. Like they didn't really actually truly believe in it. It was a lot of it's just for shock value.
Oh yeah,
stuff like that.
It's like Venom, same thing.
Oh yeah, same exact thing. But yeah, I mean, Slayer is one of those bands where I refuse to be like people telling me like, oh, come on, they're overrated. I don't think so. I think they're great. I still love all their music. And I saw them live finally for the first time ever on their farewell show. I mean, obviously it wasn't the original lineup, but I got to see Gary Holt again, who I've always really appreciated as a musician. So
yeah. Nope, he did the job. He did a good job for sure. All right. I think it's your turn, Melanie. We just talked about Slayer, but
I pulled Slayer, so actually it's you, Marty.
oh shit, I'm so fucked up with I don't know the chat and everything. I'm just having a hard time keeping up. Okay, let's talk about some more Bay Area. Again, the first two albums are great.
Very nice.
I sided with this one a little bit more. I think it's just a really well produced album. The songs are so good. Russ Anderson's vocals, so good. He's such a great fucking singer, such a strong voice. Saw them live on this tour with Realm and Death Angel, and he sounded amazing live. He completely killed it. Did not sing off key. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. Infinite. Out of the Body was a single from that. The video, Twist into Form,
R.I.P.
Tossed Away. What a great song, man. Oh,
yep. One Foot in Hell.
But
yeah,
the first album, you got Chalice of Blood, which is an absolutely crushing thrash song. You know, these guys were fucking awesome. I don't own Distortion or Green. I do have Omega Wave. It's good. Russ is putting a little bit more death metal stuff in some of the songs, but he still can sing. It sounds good. It produced a little weird, decent comeback album. It's kind of sad they never got the thing rolling like it could have, you know. Endless War, it gets a cut from the Eleanor Rigby cover, but it's a decent album. It's a good album for sure.
Every album gets one bad cover song.
Oh man, why?
And that one is a really bad cover song.
Okay, Melanie, you are back.
Okay, so I figured I'll go back to more modern. And this one just grew on me. I wrote off this project, I guess. So Toxic Holocaust in an Overdose of Death. This admittedly is the only one that I really know very well. Again, one of those modern bands that unfortunately I just wrote off for no real good reason. But it's pretty much one guy, Joel Grind, that does everything. And I think he has traveling band and he's got a drummer now. But this album is a ripper for sure. It definitely has grown on me. It's just very assaulting. But again, it's one of that newer thrash that just really took me a while to get used to. Somebody actually sent me this saying that, check this out, I think you'll like it. And I felt kind of bad. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like it. But it's grown on me a lot. It's really good. I think this actually just came out not that long ago, if I'm to be honest with you. Maybe not. No. Okay, 2008. So I'm completely wrong. And they're from Portland. So Portland has a thrash scene apparently. But yeah, Joel Grind, apparently he's like the main guy that does everything behind it. And I think now, from what I understand, they're like that retro thrash, I guess. They're like trying to bring back the old thrash sound, but also there is some blackened elements too. True, yeah. So again, immediately it's the only one I know about Toxic Holocaust, but I know that they have several other albums out, and they recently just came out with one not that long ago. But it's definitely worth a try if you're trying to get into more modern thrash. It's not awful.
It's solid. Ellen.
All right. Making sure we do touch some other important bases for the evening. I think Marty and I are on the same page with this being our favorite Anthrax, but we need to talk a little Anthrax here. Anthrax, for me, I like some of their albums a lot, and there's some of them that I can kind of pass on. So a little uneven, even among the classic albums for me. I haven't kept up with the band in recent years. I know folks have said some of the newer stuff is actually pretty good.
Worship Him and the latest one is really good. I like them both a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I like Fistful of Metal quite a bit, but it's a little bit of a stretch to call that one thrash. It's a little
different
pre-thrash.
Yeah.
A little bit. You can tell, it's not. I'm not going to yell at somebody if they call Fistful of Metal a thrash album, but it definitely it's like the first Overkill album. It's almost slightly too early to call it thrash. That's the band would definitely move into a much more. Both those bands moved into a more solid thrash metal direction on their second albums, but the first ones are different. Very good albums.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the stuff with Anthrax, and some of it again is the liquid metal problem that you've mentioned, Melanie. There's some of these Anthrax classic songs. I don't need to hear the song Indians again. I just don't. It's not that it's a bad song, but
it's no Enter Sandman.
What do you mean? You don't love Among the Living, only one of the greatest albums ever written?
The album's
to the point
fine.
of where I bought the freaking money grab graphic novel.
Everybody's got a comic book. King Diamond, Halloween.
Oh, I've got
Everybody's
his
doing them
too.
now.
It's a
Yeah.
good
Judas
album. I
Priest
just
came out
like
with one. Yeah.
like you said, I cannot finish my commute without hearing Indians on the radio, and I have now heard it enough. It's not that it's a bad song. It's just when you hear it every bloody day driving back and forth to work, yeah. Sooner or later, it's just like, man, could you guys play one song off of Fistful of Metal, please? Maybe.
Please, yeah.
It's there are certain bands that SiriusXM just run into the fucking ground, and I literally I was keeping a tally. I think I went 18 straight days where I did not miss a Def Leppard song, and I mean I don't channel surf much either. I mean I'm basically on one of 3 channels, for the entire commute. It's 90 minutes of commute a day. 18 straight days hearing at least one Def Leppard song, often 2. Just like too much. Come on, guys. There's a million cool songs by a million cool bands out there. You don't have to play the same 10 goddamn things all the time.
Yeah, Joey Belladonna's voice was an acquired taste for me for a while there. When I got into thrash, Anthrax was not my first go-to. It wasn't until I got older where I really started to appreciate, and it helps seeing them live, and just all the things that, like just the legacy around them and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, Among the Living, obviously, I feel like it's such a cliche pick, but there's so many other albums I love. But Persistence is really good. That's another really good one too.
Yeah,
so I did pull that.
Yeah, no, Among the Living's very good. Could have pulled that. Yeah, I'm not big on State of Euphoria. That one to me never. I don't know.
That's always come off as a little bit more punky to me, just a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. It's in my mind. They're. And this is probably not fair. If I sat down and looked at it, I would probably realize this is not a fair. In my mind, they're playing. It's the Goofy album. There's too much of the skateboardy kind of stuff going on in that album that it just doesn't click for me. And that may not be a fair assessment. I will be the first to admit, but I can't quite get that mental block out of the way enough to enjoy most. It has some songs I like on it, but overall, that album was always kind of a bit of a miss for me.
All right. Okay. Let's go to Seattle. Forced Entry, Uncertain Future. Always loved this record. The one that came after it, I've seen a lot of people, friends, like Pat from Ground Zero Salem. I think he said he likes the second one a little bit more. A little bit different record. This is just a really aggressive, awesome, well-written thrash album. This is a reissue. I have the OG tape, but this has got the demo on it, so it's kind of cool. Argentinian import from Icarus. Very good, solid. Like I said, really aggressive, heavy. They do not sound like this on their second album. Maybe that's why some people gravitate towards the second album more. I don't know. Check out Uncertain Future. It's definitely worth your time. You're gonna like it. Forced Entry. Melanie, you're back.
I'm like running out of things here.
Yeah, I think we're kind of winding down a little bit. That's okay though. It's back there.
Oh, I did pull Survive. Anyway, here.
Yeah.
Survive. Ta-da.
We haven't talked about the other angel. Dark Angel. Darkness Descends. It's pretty much
That's
the only
my
one
favorite. That's my
It's
favorite.
pretty much the one that I listen to the most. So I pulled this. I'm actually surprised we hadn't talked about this yet. But this is pretty much the only album I listen to by them. So I'd be willing to hear somebody else to tell me otherwise. But this is the one that I've always just been familiar with. Yeah, it's a classic. I mean, I feel like in terms of all the other thrash albums, it's definitely probably maybe a top 20 for me in that regards, but it's still one that I definitely listen to quite a bit. So yeah, Dark fucking Angel. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's what I thought you were going to show a minute ago, Marty. It's like, oh wait, no, that's the other angel.
All right, Alan.
Okay. Again, covering our bases for the evening. Melanie already talked a little bit about them, so we don't have to belabor the points. But early Megadeth, the big four. I think we've now got all four of them, the bases covered. I know a lot of people go for Killing Is My Business. That album has never completely sunk in with me. It always feels just a little too loose. Not that this is the tightest album ever, but this one I just really enjoy. So Peace Sells is usually the one I'm going to listen to. Rust in Peace is great for a completely different set of reasons, but yeah, Megadeth again. They did a lot of crap later on that I couldn't care less about, but they were one of the main pillars of thrash metal. And once again, give the devil his due. Never been all that big a fan of Dave Mustaine, but he put out some incredibly important albums for thrash metal.
Absolutely, 100%. And he was a key instrumental force in Metallica, obviously.
We know.
He doesn't let us forget.
Everybody doesn't let you forget that one.
All right. Had to show this one. This is my favorite album by this band. Their second album I like as well, but this is by far the best they ever were. Sacred Reich Ignorance.
Yeah.
Love this record. It's kind of like if you put this in the same on the same tour with the first Dead Brain Cells album. It's a well-matched tour. It reminds me, they have the same energy and kind of that it's metal, but there's a bit of a punk vibe in it. I don't know. There's something about it. I don't know if it's Phil's voice. I don't know what it is, but this album is so good. It's so aggressive, very political. Their second album, The American Way, there's like a 31 flavors. There's like a funk thing on it, which always bugged me, but I really love the production on that record. And I really liked it a lot when it came out, but this one, I always go back to whenever I listen to Sacred Reich anymore. It's this album. It is such an ass whooper from start to finish, not a throwaway track. I wish they would have done this for just a little bit longer. One or two more albums like this. After The American Way, they got really groovy and they made it so hard to like them. I'm just not into that. The super groovy stuff, but this is just really well executed and a very aggressive thrash with a message. Good stuff.
I've got to 100% disagree. I've never thought Sacred Reich was anything more than second tier thrash that was utterly forgettable.
Right on.
It's cool. I know a lot of people like that album and are into the band, and that's cool. And they do have a few songs here and there. I like the number of Sacred Reich songs I like. I could fit them probably on about 3 fingers. I tried to get that album. I owned it back in the day. I played it a lot trying to like it. And I was just like, this just sounds tired to me. It's never impressed, but that's just me.
Right on, man. Melanie, you're back.
Another one that I had listed, I don't own it, so this is another one that I'm on the hunt for, is Fueled by Fire. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with them.
Never heard of
them. Spread the Fire. Band out of California. They're a little bit newer. This album came out in 2006. They only have 3 full lengths. Oh yeah, we haven't talked about Overkill tonight. I'm surprised by that. But yeah, it's like that gore thrash metal sound. It always came up on like my YouTube suggestions, and so it's one of those things that I listen to quite frequently. But unfortunately, it's hard to find. I don't even know like if they were ever on a label. But it's a good. I would definitely check it out. A little bit of an underground thrash album there that probably not a lot of people know about.
Okay.
And we have not talked about Voivod either. I'm surprised that hasn't.
I was going to pull Dimension Hatros, but I totally forgot. Well, another one of my top favorite albums of all time.
Yeah, but people in the chat are asking for Voivod, which I funnily enough didn't think to pull anything either. I mean, I'm not the Voivod acolyte, so I'm never the person you want to pull Voivod albums.
Is this what you guys wanted to see? Because we haven't talked about Taking Over or anything like that.
Yeah, you showed the box set earlier, and it's like maybe that counts. Maybe we're skipping Overkill. I don't know.
Under the Influence was always my personal favorite, but
that's cool.
Nice.
Yeah,
he's got some on it. The Feel the Fire is great, but this is, if I've got to pick one, I got to pick Years of Decay. Such a very, very angry album. Love it. One of the sort of first real serious heavy metal albums I got and just obsessed over. Still a personal favorite.
They're just those first few albums are just an angry band.
Yeah. There's some Bobby Blitz's voice. He can just really convince you that he is pissed off at you personally, not just angry about, socioeconomic, politics or the World Bank or something. He's pissed at you and he's going to do something mean to you about it. And so you're just like, shit, man, I'm sorry. I don't know what it was. But yeah, always loved his vocals. Loved Dee Dee Verney's bass. Great stuff all the way through.
Yeah, I pulled him as well. Feel the Fire is my favorite Overkill album, but isn't really super thrashy. It's not. But these two are kind of tied for me as their best as far as the thrash, and this one is another one that got destroyed in the great toilet mishap of 2019 or 2018. I don't know. But Horoscope, what an amazing album. This is so good. Their last really good album. I mean, they put out some good albums over the years, and I like their last couple. Another good one is Ironbound. That's a really good album too. They're one of those bands that like every other album for a while was good. I Hear Black album is absolute garbage. Terrible album.
Yeah, let's not go there. It's a little too late to go. A little too late to go into that. Overkill is one of those bands. Every now and then, someone I always hear like, yeah, a new album will come out, and some folks be like, "Oh yeah, it's back to form. It's really good, and I'll check it out." And I'm just like, meh. But Horoscope, yeah, Horoscope is one of those that's overlooked. 90. It came out in 91. When did it come out in 91? I want to say something. Okay, September 3rd. Yeah, late 91. I want to throw something out there, and people can argue or point out exceptions. Horoscope might have been one of the last really great thrash metal albums of the era. Because September 91, you've already got the Black Album is out. You've already got Smells Like Teen Spirit is out. Thrash's days are real numbered by that point. I'm going to propose Horoscope as the last great thrash metal album of the golden age of thrash, and let people point out what a dumb statement that is, because I'm not thinking of other things that maybe came later.
It's all right. I have people tell me that they don't like Overkill and they think that they're awful. So,
well, those people are communists, and
they couldn't get into the vocals, and I'm like, oh.
Hey, Taylor Swift fans are allowed to have opinions too.
It's like, you clearly don't like heavy metal then if you hate his vocals, because he's got a very heavy metal sounding voice at times.
You're up, Melanie. You got any more?
I pulled out Municipal Waste, but I don't really consider that really fully thrash. I think it's more of a crossover. This is really the only album that I've ever really liked by them, was The Fatal Feast. It's definitely that retro thrash that they're trying to do, bring back the 80s thrash sound. Fun band, nonetheless, a newer band that I just started to get into and try to give a chance. So I pulled this just to talk, more modern thrash albums. But this is really, admittedly, the only one that I'm familiar with. I know that several other people did bring this up in the chat I saw earlier. So it's like, yes, I did pull it, but I don't know. I can't speak to a whole lot about them. I just know, like, for me personally, this is the one that I like. But their album cover, this immediately reminds me a little bit of Exhumed. It just reminds me of Exhumed. So you would think maybe it's probably more of a death grind album, but no, it's got more of that like retro thrash, a little bit of a crossover sound from there.
Awesome. Alan, you got any more?
I have one. Yeah, I've got one or two last things. We're at the bottom of the stack. Another pet band. I'm not claiming this is a good album, but I like it. Jersey band called Dead On.
I never owned that.
You're not missing a lot. It's thrashy, but it's relatively simple sounding. It's almost maybe getting to like a little power thrash. It's not real technical or intricate or anything. Their only claim to fame was they somehow got a song onto the soundtrack of Wes Craven's Shocker, the bad Nightmare on Elm Street ripoff.
Yep.
When you're ripping off your own movies, you're doing the thing. But yeah, they were on the soundtrack to that, which is where I heard them. I liked the song because I was 14 years old, and anything heavy I was going to probably track it down by. It's kind of a fun album. I like it. The vocalist always made an impression on me because he seems to spit a lot when he talks. It's very like kind of sounding. I can only imagine if you were at a dead on concert, and you wanted the 5 people that showed up, you needed one of those like plastic raincoats like they would hand out at the Gallagher shows to keep all the stuff off of you. Because if you did that live, I mean, it just sounds like stuff's going, totally Donald Duck all over the place when he's singing. But it's just kind of a fun listen. Even to this day, I keep it around. It is not, a technical masterwork. It is not a lost classic. It's just it's a pet album by a band that is, I'll call them thrash. They're not they're third tier thrash, if I'm being real honest, but I like it. Dead on. It's fun. It's been reissued not long ago too. It's another one that I think maybe Dive Bomb did. So if folks are really interested, or you're out there and just like, man, I wish I had that because I loved the Shocker soundtrack too. Okay, you can go get the reissue with all kinds of bonus stuff on it.
I did not realize that the singer of Fuel by Fire was from Skeletal Remains. So that's probably why it was coming up as a suggestion for me. Because I love that band. So I did not realize that. Interesting.
Okay, my last one. Yeah, it was a faux pas not pulling to mention Hatros, one of my all-time favorite albums. If anybody wants to watch a pretty cool Voivod deep dive, go over to Metal Madness 66 YouTube channel, where myself, Matt from The Dark Path, Devin from Maze of Torment, and Jeff from Metal Madness 66, we did a 2-part deep dive on the entire Voivod catalog. So that was recently-ish. So that's maybe why I didn't pull Voivod, because I just recently talked about him. But my last one is this classic Paradox Heresy. I know they were mentioned earlier in the chat. This is a great record. It really is a great record. It's the last one by them I've heard. Jurgen's been on me to check out some of their other stuff. I'm going to. I just haven't got around to it yet. This is a reissue. I have the OG tape, but this is a reissue. I had to have it on CD. Their first album is really good. Maybe a little bit more Metallica inspired, but this sounds like it should have been on Noise, to be honest. It was a German thrash band. They had the Noise feel about them. They were on Road Racer though. A little bit bigger label, I think, but absolute classic record. Heresy is an amazing record. Probably, I've only heard 2 of their albums, but of the 2 I heard, this is the best. I can't imagine they got much better than this, but I could be wrong. And that's all I have. And honestly, a lot of great comments in the chat tonight, and bands, Mace, Numbskull, could have pulled Numbskull. Millions and millions and millions of thrash bands over, a long period of time.
We did not mention Annihilator. Somebody just asked about.
Alice in Hell is that the name of that album?
That's the first one. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good album. They never blew me away. Annihilator never blew me. I like that album. The one after it's a little weird. Neverland, not the same. I don't know.
Different vocalist. Yeah.
Artillery was mentioned, James.
Yes,
Melanie showed by Inheritance.
Melanie had Artillery covered.
Yep. Fear of Tomorrow is also classic. Terror Squad's also really good. They got a lot more power metal as they went on, which is kind of weird. But Rigor Mortis, Blessed. Yeah, you missed Blessed Death, Frank. I showed them. I showed Destined for Extinction, At War. Then showing you At War. Like I said,
At War and Forever. Yeah.
Violence.
Probably Violent. I didn't pull any Violent.
Yeah, I don't have any hard copies of Violence, so I didn't think about that. They've got the new. How has anybody in the chat heard the new Violence album? I've only heard the song.
I've seen a video or the video. It was good. It sounded like Violence, which is cool. Oh, wait a minute. We got a plug here for Explosive Action and for more thrash metal. Look out for my next update video and plug. Okay. Definitely go to Explosive Action, people. Good channel. Great channel. Simon was on a couple weeks ago.
Exeter. Nobody talked about Slaughter in the Vatican.
I am not a big fan of Exorder. People think I'm crazy.
That's the only album I like by them. I don't like their newest one that they put out recently.
The Law wasn't good at all. That was not good. Slaughter in the Vatican was good. I just didn't click with me.
I don't mind Exorder, but I wouldn't have pulled them for tonight. But nothing. I don't dislike them. But I'm not nuts about them.
And I don't fully consider Sepultura to be thrash.
I don't either.
in the comments tonight. Yeah, I put the same thing in the comments earlier. It's just like, sorry, folks, I've got them on the death metal shelf, so I didn't really think about pulling them off.
I mean, there's definitely thrashy elements, especially in Arise. But I've always considered them to be more of a crossover death thrash, death metal, groove metal. I don't know, groove metal's the thing. Sometimes people think Pantera can be thrash too, but I've never considered them to be that either.
No, I would have to disagree with that. Someone asked about Dead Brain Cells. Marty covered that one earlier.
But yeah, this is a topic, I'm sure we'll cross the thrash topic again. It's, like I said, part of the DNA. There's so many bands, and I don't even have, between us, there's no way of having all those bands. And there's so many I missed over the years. That's what's been fun, digging back and trying to find some of those old bands. Sacrilege BC were good. They were Bay Area band, weren't they? Vendetta, great German band. Go and Live, Stay and Die is awesome. Brain Damage is awesome. Mm-hmm. So many classics and so much to cram into a few hours here. And Melanie, thank you so much again for joining us. It was so much fun as always. And everybody go check out Melanie Loves Death Metal for a very enthusiastic and ambitious channel that posts many times a week, which is very cool. And Alan, of course, you got to go check out Let's Talk Metal. You got to go get on that. I'm sure anybody that's a fan here that watches this channel is also subscribed to that channel. But if you're not, subscribe. Absolutely. Every Tuesday, he's got a new video up. And I'm sure now that he's got some free time coming, there'll be a few more. And we'll be doing a few more heavy metallurgy stream or things. I don't know, not streams necessarily, but things here throughout the weeks. Well, Alan's a little more.
Hoping to, I'll probably stick to the one video per Tuesday for Let's Talk Metal. It's a schedule that I'm comfy with, and folks, I think, kind of know to look for the videos on Tuesday mornings if they need something to wake up to or listen to on a commute or whenever they want to play it. But Marty and I are helping to get a little more content going on the heavy metallurgy channel here during the summer, and hopefully have some fun with some different ideas that we've got knocking around.
And this coming Wednesday, as far as I know, the Glorious Album Club will be back, and we will be dissecting Creator's Terrible Certainty. Hopefully Alan will be there. If he is, you will be picking the next one, Alan. So make a list, check it twice, make TJ suffer.
I played that Leprous album as many times as I could, and
give him something to make him suffer.
I did all the homework, and then I was absent that day.
Yeah. Well, anyway, everybody, thank you so much. We had a lot of people in the chat. Thank you for making it a lot of fun. Sorry it got a little chaotic to keep up with the discussion and the chat. We tried to include people into things, but it was getting a bit crazy at some point. I was having a hard time.
We've had a lot of viewers tonight and a ton of comments, a lot of really good ones. Folks have had a good time hanging out there with the chat, which has been awesome.
Yep.
But it can be a lot to bounce back and forth between everything sometimes.
Right on. Here we go. Awesome stream.
Thank you.
Up now. Woohoo. Yep. Go check out Melanie Loves Death Metal. Good shit. And Melanie, you rule. We love you. And thanks for joining us. We will get you on again, of course. Absolutely. Everybody have a great night. Don't hang up, Melanie. We're going to talk for a minute. And everybody, we'll see you Wednesday. Take care. Thanks again.
Everybody have a good weekend.